Chapter 21:37. Among them were the god-children from all over the universe. Some of them were peerless geniuses on the primal chaos golden ranking. More than 10,000 people had arrived at the plaza in front of the illusory palace. For a time, the plaza was filled with stars. Every time a genius appeared, the crowd would cheer loudly. These geniuses had gone through many rounds of selections. They were the elites who possessed the sharpness of peerless geniuses. As long as they entered the Yuan Tiangong, they would definitely become peerless experts in the future. Even the masters who would decide the fate of the universe will be born from them. This time, the Yuan Tiangong entrance test would not only decide the future of these geniuses, it would also decide the allocation of the quota to enter the Yuan Tiangong. It was related to the life and death of many people. How could such a moment be just the focus of everyone's attention? Not only had the region masters from all over the universe personally appeared with their subordinates, many hidden god races and wandering cultivators had also appeared. They sat cross-legged in the air outside the giant palace and paid attention to the geniuses on the plaza. Su Fong sat cross-legged in the middle of the crowd, feeling the tense and excited atmosphere around him. He was also overwhelmed with emotions. Using his great perfection realm ability to sense the geniuses, Su Fong found some familiar auras. Sun Qi. I didn't expect that Sun Qi's cultivation had also broken through to the divine venerable realm after we parted ways in Rainbow Desolate City. Ji Wuji is here as expected. However, he was injured by my lightning of destiny and is far from recovered. He is no longer a threat to me. In Buji, young Master Wentian, and the peerless geniuses from the ancient god races and forces of the universe are all here. After sensing for a while, Su Fong did not find the auras of the Brahma heaven god realm's Sanskrit geniuses, but he was not surprised. Sanskrit's #1 genius fan how and hundreds of other geniuses have been killed by him. Sanskrit of the Brahma heaven god realm had lost the qualification to enter the Yuan Tiangong. To Su Fong's disappointment, he did not find the person he wanted to see the most. The geniuses of the ancient god realm had not appeared yet, so Su Fong naturally could not see Xuanxin. While Su Fong was sensing the other geniuses, many people were sensing him as well. Among them, there were a few that were filled with hostility, provocation, and even undisguised killing intent. In Buji, Ji Wuji, there were also geniuses from other forces and forces of the god realm. Looks like I'm not welcome no matter where I go. Su Fong rubbed the tip of his nose helplessly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Another batch of geniuses entered the inner space of the plaza with their badges. There were more than 100 people in this batch of geniuses. Their auras and attire were all different. It was obvious that they were rogue cultivators from secluded sections. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Among these geniuses, the aura of one of them caused the mysterious Tao runes of destiny to flash in the depths of Su Fong's divine aperture. There's actually an acquaintance inside. Who is this person? It was one of the wandering geniuses who had caused the life-shrinking arts Tao runes to react. This person looked less than 20 years old. He was dressed in tight black robes and had a chiseled face. His aura was cold and murderous, and he gave off a cold and unapproachable feeling. What surprised and shocked Su Fong was that this person's aura actually contained his own. This person is actually not a person, but a divine artifact. The human-shaped divine artifact that Heavenly Treasure Emperor forged. Heavenly Treasure. Su Fong's heart was in turmoil. Heavenly Treasure. This genius was the divine artifact that Heavenly Treasure Emperor had spent his entire life forging. Back in the Great World, Su Fong had used his own power and blood energy to awaken the human-shaped divine artifact forged by Heavenly Treasure Emperor in the boundless secular palace. He had obtained Heavenly Treasure Emperor's great artifact forging Tao from this human-shaped divine artifact. Heavenly Treasure had promised that when Su Fong ascended to the Great World and surpassed him, he would serve Su Fong as his master. Ever since Su Fong had ascended to the boundless heavens, he hadn't obtained any news about Heavenly Treasure. He never imagined that he would encounter Heavenly Treasure during the entrance examination of Primordius Heavenly Palace. Moreover, This humanoid divine tool had become a peerless genius of the boundless heavens and had the qualifications to enter Primordius' heavenly palace. Suppressing his shock, Su Fong continued to carefully sense Heavenly Treasure's aura. The divine light changed again. Heavenly Treasure's current cultivation had reached the peak of the ninth heaven of ultimate God. His aura was vast and mysterious, and it was difficult to determine what Tao he cultivated. It was somewhat similar to Su Fong's inner world. Sensing Su Fong's gaze, Celestial Bao raised his head and looked over. He could not help but be startled. Soon after, a cold smile appeared on his face. An astonishing sharpness shot out from his eyes, and a strong fighting spirit flowed out. Heavenly Treasure not only has self-awareness, but his talent is also amazing. It seems that it won't be easy to make him recognize me as his master. Su Fong raised his eyebrows. After waiting for all the geniuses from the great world to arrive for another half a month, the crowd of experts from various forces suddenly became restless and automatically parted to form a path. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The Tao of destiny of the divine life, shrinking technique, flashed violently again. Su Fong's heart surged along with it. He suddenly stood up from the ground, and his eyes flashed with hale and hearty brilliance. He focused his eyes and looked. He saw thousands of young men and women flying toward the square. The aura of these young people was not only empty, but also clearly different from the geniuses of the God world. There was an ancient and profound aura of the heavenly way. Moreover, each of them had a strong heavenly way fate. The purple clouds above their heads made Su Fong, who used the purple clouds' spiritual power, see purple clouds. Obviously, these young geniuses all came from a mysterious and ancient God world. The leader was a young man in his early 20s. He was extraordinarily handsome, as if all the brilliance in the world was concentrated on him. No one could compete with him. None of the geniuses of the ancient God world behind him dared to walk in front of him. While everyone's eyes were focused on this young man, Su Fong's attention was focused on the back. His gaze fell on a white-clothed woman in the crowd and did not move away. The woman's face was flawlessly beautiful. Her temperament was cold and noble, and she had an awe-inspiring and inviolable sacred aura. Anyone who saw her would feel ashamed of their own inferiority. The woman was surrounded by a group of young geniuses. They all looked at her with eyes full of unconcealable adoration. Xuanxin, Su Fong could not help but feel a surge of emotions. Xuanxin, I finally get to see you. Xuanxin, who was in the crowd, also saw Su Fong. The moment their eyes met, they did not separate. 100,000 years of hardship, 100,000 years of hard work. It was all for this moment. Sit down. Many geniuses were sitting cross-legged on the square. When Su Fong suddenly stood up, he was very conspicuous. One of the Yuan Tiangong Heaven Punishers, who were maintaining order, immediately shouted coldly, Xuanxin. Su Fong did not seem to hear him. He flew across the sky toward the geniuses of the ancient God world. What is this person doing? It's actually Su Fong. Don't tell me he wants to kneel down and lick the boots of the geniuses of the ancient God world. All the geniuses were surprised as well, and they started whispering amongst themselves. Some of them recognized Su Fong and started mocking and ridiculing him. Su Fong's eyes were filled with Xuanxin's shadow. How could he hear what others were saying? Go back. One of the Heaven Punishers shouted coldly and released a divine aura that swept towards Su Fong. This Heaven Punisher's cultivation had reached the level of an area lord. Although it was just a warning, it still forced Su Fong to retreat. The blood and qi in his body churned. Unexpectedly, Su Fong's figure flickered. Flames appeared under his feet as he rapidly flew toward the geniuses of the ancient God world. Reckless fool, do you think you can ignore my orders just because you have the qualifications to enter the Yuan Tiangong? The Heaven Punisher snorted and was about to release his aura to force Su Fong back. Let him go. Song Yanhai's voice came and stopped the Heaven Punisher. Su Fong quickly flew in front of the geniuses of the ancient God world. One of the geniuses of the ancient God world flashed out from behind the extraordinary young man. Scram! The Imperial Abyss young master does not accept the greetings of the ancient god world's ants. This ancient god world genius clearly misunderstood Su Fong. He thought that Su Fong was here to greet this extraordinary young man. Su Fong ignored him and flew into the crowd, heading straight for Xuanxin. The ancient god world genius's face alternated between green and white. Just as he was about to get angry, the extraordinary young man named Imperial Abyss flew into the square as if nothing had happened. Su Fong immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. Huang Xuanxin, what are you doing? The crowd behind him was in an uproar. It turned out that Xuanxin had also disregarded everything and parted the crowd to welcome Su Fong. Huang Xuanxin, this woman is Huang Xuanxin. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Xuanxin's appearance immediately attracted the attention of many geniuses. Burning gazes were all focused on Xuanxin. Buji and some of the geniuses from the ancient god clans revealed intense greed and possessiveness in their eyes. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Su Fong and Xuanxin hugged each other tightly. At this moment, their world seemed to have stopped. The surroundings also quieted down. After 5 breaths, an uproar of exclamations spread out like a tide. Countless people's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Some found it unbelievable, while others had the thought of a beautiful flower stuck in cow dung, or a toad lusting after a swan's flesh in that instant. The ancient god world geniuses who were with Xuanxin all felt as if they had been humiliated. Their eyes were filled with jealousy and murderous intent as they looked at Su Fong. The peerless experts who had accompanied the ancient god world geniuses here were not surprised when they saw this scene from the periphery. Su Fong, it's actually him. Huang Xuanxin, this bitch, actually colluded with Su Fong long ago. A young man from the ancient god Phoenix clan gritted his teeth, his eyes burning with anger. This person was Feng Mingtian. Chapter 21:38. The top powers of the divine Phoenix ancient clan all looked ghastly. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent as they looked at Su Fong. If it weren't for the Yuan Tiangong Heaven Punisher, the experts of the divine Phoenix ancient clan would have already killed Su Fong. Investigate. Find out who this person is. The red-haired elder shouted with murderous intent. An expert of the divine Phoenix ancient clan said coldly, "How dare he blaspheme the genius of the divine Phoenix ancient clan in public? No matter who he is, he must die after the test." Seeing the expressions of the experts, Feng Mingtian was pleased. "Su Fong, even if I don't do anything, the experts of my clan won't let you off. And Xuanxin, that bitch, one day I'll get my hands on you and make you beg for death." Feng Mingtian's son, Feng Jinhuan, was eliminated in the second round of the competition because of Su Fong. Feng Jinhuan was blackmailed by Su Fong and his treasures were stolen. Even a drop of Feng Mingtian's blood essence was taken. Not only that, but Feng Mingtian's primordial spirit was also destroyed by Su Fong's thunder of destiny. His primordial spirit was severely injured, and his status in the divine Phoenix ancient clan plummeted. For Feng Mingtian to be able to come here this time, he was only here to do odd jobs. His goal was to take revenge on Su Fong. Who would have thought that after seeing this scene? Feng Mingtian finally understood that he had been fooled by Xian Xian in the past and had been played like a monkey. Feng Mingtian's hatred was imaginable. However, Feng Mingtian would never have thought that he would end up like this because he had deceived Fairy Frozen Dream in the macro world. Seeing Su Fong and Xuanxin hugging each other, everyone was shocked. Some couldn't believe it, and some were jealous and resentful. At the back of the ancient god world geniuses, there was a woman in black. She was wearing a cloak, and it was difficult to see her face. Through the veil, the woman saw the scene of Su Fong and Xuanxin hugging each other. She let out a sigh filled with melancholy. "You two little fellows, it's time to wake up. This is not a place for you two to linger around." Su Fong and Xuanxin were immersed in the joy of their reunion and had completely forgotten about the outside world. At this moment, the voice of Tsang Yanhai's primordial spirit reverberated in their ears and minds, waking them up. Only then did Xuanxin realize that this was not the time to be intimate. He quickly separated himself from Su Fong, but one of his hands was held tightly by Su Fong. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Su Fong took Xuanqin's hand and flew to the square side by side. Xuanqin was no longer as unapproachable as before. His face was flushed with pride, and his eyes sparkled with excitement. After 100,000 years of hardship, how could Xuanqin not be excited to be able to reunite with him today? Su Fong flew to the square with Xuanqin. Only then did he realize that he had become the target of public criticism. Of course, most people were jealous, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Sensing these people's gazes, Su Fong revealed a domineering smile. He did not care about other people's gazes at all. Su Fong and Xuanqin sat cross-legged on the square. Xuanqin released a figure from her palm. It was Su Fong's thunder punishment doppelganger that had been accompanying her all these years. Back then, Su Fong let the thunder punishment doppelganger follow Xuanqin to protect Xuanqin. At this moment, Xuanqin's cultivation had reached the height of the sixth heaven of ultimate God. She was one level higher than Su Fong. Naturally, she did not need the protection of Su Fong's thunder punishment doppelganger. However, after so many years, Xuanqin was able to persist until now because of the thunder punishment doppelganger's company. Otherwise, she would definitely not be able to reach her current height. Su Fong took the thunder punishment doppelganger into his body and merged it with his main body. Then, he communicated with Xuanqin through their primordial spirits. After being separated for 100,000 years, the two of them had too much to say to each other. After an unknown amount of time, an elegant old man flew out of the illusory palace with hundreds of experts. An extremely vast and majestic aura enveloped the square. More than 10,000 geniuses in the square were all trembling. They felt as if they were facing the embodiment of the heavenly Tao at this moment. Their heads were buzzing as an instinctive reverence surged from the bottom of their hearts. Facing this old man, they were as small as ants. The heaven punishers around the square knelt down one after another. Greetings, Emperor One Dao. Emperor, this person is actually a peerless emperor. Many geniuses knelt down and bowed to the elegant old man. Among more than 10,000 peerless geniuses, only the young man, named Di Yuan, remained motionless. No one knew what his identity was, but he dared to not bow in front of an emperor. The elegant old man landed in front of the geniuses and nodded. This Emperor One Dao is in charge of this Yuan Tiangong's entrance test. Show off your talents to your heart's content. Don't disappoint this emperor. At the same time, there are many experts watching you. If your performance is outstanding, there may be experts who will directly take you in as their disciples. Yes, the geniuses replied in unison. They were all extremely excited, and they could not help but clench their fists tightly. Their eyes were filled with determination. Sit down. Emperor One Dao waved his hand, and the terrifying aura enveloping the geniuses instantly disappeared. Emperor One Dao's figure also disappeared into nothingness. The geniuses knew very well that he had not left. Instead, he was hidden in nothingness, paying attention to the geniuses' every move. A middle-aged man stood up and said coldly, "Listen up. This emperor will now announce the rules of the 7 gates of heaven's test. Within the 7 heavenly gates, the contents of the test are different from each other. The sum of your final test results will determine which of the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow boundaries you enter. At the same time, it will also determine the number of spots you will receive to enter Primordia's heavenly palace. The top 10 will enter the heaven realm to cultivate. The quota to enter Yuan Tiangong will be more than 1,000,000. The 100th and 1000th will enter the earth realm and the mysterious realm, respectively. The quota to enter Yuan Tiangong will range from 10,000 to 1,000,000. As for those below the 1000th rank, they will be assigned to the lowest level, the Yellow Realm. This emperor will remind you that the 4 different cultivation holy lands will not only have different cultivation environments, but the status and resources you will enjoy will also be different. This will have a huge impact on your future achievements." The middle-aged man's words made the geniuses nervous. Geniuses, next, you will enter the 7 gates of heaven and decide your own destiny. The middle-aged man said majestically. The geniuses all stood up from the ground. The content of the first gate of heaven's test is age. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the geniuses were all stunned. In the void outside the square, the peerless masters from various forces in the heavens and realms were all shocked and stunned. They didn't expect that such an important test to enter the palace in Yuan Tiangong, the first gate of heaven's test, would be so easy. Age. However, after thinking about it, many people suddenly understood. Su Fong thought to himself, the main purpose of the Emperor Realm Masters in the heavens and realms joining forces to create the Yuan Tiangong is to select the best peerless geniuses to enter the celestial worthy mountain and find a way to stop the changes in heaven and earth. The first test to enter the palace is age. Obviously, the age limit to enter the celestial worthy mountain is very strict. The time I spent cultivating, including the time in the time cavern, is less than 200,000 years. In the first gate of heaven's test, Xuanxin and I have a great advantage. Su Fong and Xuanxin looked at each other and smiled. They were both relieved. Enter the first gate of heaven according to the numbers on your tokens. The middle-aged man from Primordius Heavenly Palace loudly shouted. This meant that Primordius Heavenly Palace's entrance examination had officially begun. From the illusion of the huge palace, thousands of golden rays shot out and condensed into a golden list. It didn't look big, but could be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. This golden list was used to display the results of the geniuses. Buzz! Buzz! Su Fong felt the token in his storage ring vibrate. He took it out and saw a long string of numbers appear on it. 10,587. When it was his turn, the first gate of heaven's test had come to an end. Su Fong sat down calmly. Xuanxin's number was even lower. It turned out that the sequence of numbers for this test was first for the divine sons from various star fields, then for the geniuses on the primeval chaos golden list, and finally for the geniuses from the ancient god realm. Number 1. Take the test in front of the first gate of heaven. A young genius flew slowly and landed in front of the first gate of heaven formed by the golden Xianguang. For a moment, countless senses fell on this genius. The young genius stretched out his palm and pressed it on the gate of heaven, releasing blood and qi. First gate of heaven, open. After absorbing the young genius's blood and qi, the gate of heaven radiated golden light, forming a golden arc that spread to the surroundings. The gate of heaven also opened little by little. In the end, the young genius made the golden arc released by the first gate of heaven reach a diameter of 10 feet. The gate of heaven opened a gap that allowed one person to pass through. This genius had obviously been cultivating for a long time, so his results were very ordinary. However, he had passed the test successfully. The young genius was overjoyed. He flashed through the gate of heaven and came to a square formed by an array behind the first gate of heaven. His name also appeared on the golden list above the illusion of the palace. One genius after another passed the first gate of heaven's test. The whole process was unusually dull. Huang Xuanxin, a young man from the ancient god realm, came to Xuanxin. Sanskrit. Su Fong scanned this person with his great perfection ability and immediately sensed a familiar aura. He determined that this person was indeed Sanskrit from the ancient god realm. Xuanxin said indifferently, "What's the matter, Fan Shu?" The young man named Fan Shu said majestically, "You are from the ancient Phoenix divine clan. How can you degrade yourself and associate yourself with these lowly people? Even we from the ancient god realm are ashamed of you. Go back to where you belong." Fan Shu's words were equivalent to including all the geniuses from the ancient god realm, which immediately attracted angry gazes. Chapter 2139. Fan Shu sneered. "I thought you were so noble, Xuanxin. I didn't expect you to be such a lowly woman. You're willing to degrade yourself and hang out with ants. Get lost." Su Fong shouted domineeringly. Fan Shu's face darkened. "Ant, do you know who you're talking to? I know you're from the Sanskrit of the ancient god realm. You're just trying to provoke me by humiliating my Tao partner so that you can avenge the Sanskrit of the Brahma heaven god realm. Clown, you've succeeded. You've attracted my attention. If I have the chance in the future, I won't mind killing you. Su Fang saw through Fan Shu's thoughts and said coldly. If Fan Shu had challenged him directly, Su Fang wouldn't have tried to kill him. However, he had violated Su Fang's taboo by humiliating Xuanxin. Su Fang didn't mind killing him if he could find the right opportunity. I've heard that you're extremely arrogant, Aunt. I've finally seen it for myself. There's no need to wait until the future. There will be plenty of opportunities to fight during the 7 Gates of Heaven test. I'd like to see how you're going to kill me. Fan Shu's handsome face showed a gloomy smile, and then he left in embarrassment. Xuanxin said, Su Fang, I've caused you trouble. There will be bigger trouble later. It's okay. I'm here. Su Fang's tone was firm. Xian Xian's heart, which was originally a little nervous, calmed down instantly. Su Fang's domineering response to the genius of the ancient god race from the ancient god realm changed the impression the geniuses on the primordial chaos golden list had of him. The so-called primordial chaos golden list was set up by peerless existences to protect peerless geniuses. The geniuses who needed protection were usually born ordinary, but their cultivation aptitude was unparalleled. These geniuses on the primordial chaos golden list were not only hostile to the geniuses of the ancient god realm, but also the ancient god realm. At this time, Su Fang's domineering attitude toward the Sanskrit of the ancient god realm made them very happy and relieved. While a series of exclamations could be heard, it turned out that he was a genius who, during the first test of the Gate of Heaven, caused the golden arc of light to expand to a diameter of 3,000 meters, opening the entire Gate of Heaven for him. The first Gate of Heaven tested the age of the geniuses. 10 million years was the limit, and the Gate of Heaven could release an arc of light that was 10 zhang long. If one was 1,000,000 years old, the arc of light would be 300 zhang long. This genius was able to make the Gate of Heaven release an arc of light that was thousands of feet long. This could only mean one thing. This person was only 100,000 years old. Those geniuses that had the qualifications to enter Primordia's heavenly palace were all outstanding young elites of the endless heavens. The lowest were upper god emperors, and the highest were upper god exalts. There were even some that crossed the god exalts realm. An ordinary true god would need tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of years to reach the divine emperor realm. The time needed to reach the hierarch realm was even longer, and that was under the premise that there were no cultivation shackles and sufficient cultivation resources. This genius only used a little more than 100,000 years, and his cultivation was a powerful existence at the 9th heaven of the ultimate god realm. It could be seen how amazing his cultivation aptitude was. To have such an amazing cultivation at such a young age, all the geniuses, including the territorial lords, could not help but think that this person was a monster. Su Fang was not too surprised, as this genius was none other than heavenly treasure. It seems that Tian Bao has encountered a great fortune after coming to the universe. However, it is enough to see how extraordinary Emperor Tian Bao is. Su Fang felt a wave of heartfelt admiration for Emperor Tian Bao. Then, Su Fang raised his eyebrows. After this test, Tian Bao will definitely amaze the world. It won't be easy to make him submit. At this moment, the purple Chi Dharma spirit, original spirit, Ah-Zi, said, Master, don't worry. With Ah-Zi here, Tian Bao won't be able to do much. No matter how powerful he is now, he is still a divine tool. Su Fang smiled embarrassedly. How could he forget about the purple Chi Dharma spirit? The first test of the Gate of Heaven lasted for half a month. During this time, Sun Chi also passed the test. His cultivation time was only 3 million years, which was considered outstanding among the many geniuses. Finally, it was the turn of the geniuses on the Hunyuan Golden Ranking. Xuanxin, I'll go first. Su Fang said to Xuanxin, Go, let the universe see your peerless talent. Xuanxin nodded and smiled. Xuanxin knew very well that her partner had heaven-defying cultivation aptitude and unparalleled luck. At the same time, he was ambitious and ruthless. The only flaw was his birth. The upheaval of heaven and earth brought calamity to the universe. However, for Su Fang, It was a chance to rise against the heavens. The entrance test of the Yuan Tiangong was a stage for the geniuses to show their talents. Xuanqi naturally hoped that Su Fong could show his peerless talent and attract the attention of the universe. Xuanqi didn't have many thoughts about herself. Her goal was to be with Su Fong and be able to keep up with Su Fong's footsteps. That was enough. Su Fong came to the first gate of heaven and stood still. His blood qi made the golden light arc released by the gate of heaven almost 10,000 feet long, but it was slightly inferior to a heavenly treasure. That was because Su Fong often cultivated in the time cave abode. The time he spent was almost 200,000 years in total. However, such a result was still extremely shocking. It attracted the attention of many geniuses and overlords. Ji Wuji, Buji, and the other geniuses of the ancient divine clans didn't look good, and they felt frustrated. This was especially true for Ji Wuji. In terms of true strength and cultivation aptitude, he was definitely not someone Su Fong could compare to. However, his strength and talent were accumulated after 6 lifetimes of cultivation. Su Fong had cultivated for less than 200,000 years and couldn't be compared at all. The Blue Dome Domain Lord, Star Billow Domain Lord, and the others were watching from the outside. Xian Lingzi, Master Kuan Su, and the others were also there. Although they already knew Su Fong's age, Su Fong's result of the first gate of heaven test was still shocking and exciting. Su Fong stepped through the gate of heaven and came to the square formed by the array formation in front of the second gate of heaven. "You are indeed not bad, but you are far from enough to be my master." The voice of a primordial spirit sounded. It was heavenly treasure. "This is only the first gate of heaven test." "It's nothing," Su Fong replied indifferently. The geniuses on the primordial chaos golden roll passed the first gate of heaven test 6 times in a row. However, something went wrong during Ji Wuji's test. After he infused his blood qi into the gate of heaven, the golden light on the gate of heaven immediately dissipated and didn't condense into an arc of light. The gate of heaven also didn't move at all and showed no signs of opening. Ji Wuji's divine light changed instantly. "What's going on?" The square was in an uproar. The middle-aged man from the Yuan Tiangong said indifferently, "The gate of heaven hasn't opened yet." "Eliminated." "Eliminated?" Ji Wuji staggered, and his face instantly turned pale. The geniuses on the square and the powerful cultivators outside were all shocked and surprised. No one had thought that the palace test would also eliminate geniuses. No one had thought that the number 1 genius of the Ji people would be eliminated. He was famous throughout the entire universe, yet he was eliminated at the first gate of heaven test to enter the palace. Ji Wuji shouted coldly, "This isn't fair." Only Dao Emperor's majestic voice sounded. "You've cultivated the 9 reincarnation technique and have cultivated for 6 lifetimes. The gate of heaven test has counted the ages of your 6 lifetimes, so you're not qualified to enter the Yuan Tiangong. How is this unfair? An old monster who has cultivated for 6 lifetimes is competing with a younger generation who has cultivated for tens or even millions of years. This is what I call unfair. The Yuan Tiangong doesn't need a genius like you. Go." As soon as only Dao Emperor finished speaking, a divine aura swept Ji Wuji away and sent him flying into the void outside of the square. Puffed. Ji Wuji was shocked and angry. At the same time, he was extremely ashamed and resentful. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood and fainted. So what if the Ji people don't enter the Yuan Tiangong? Emperor. The Ji people don't have an emperor, right? The first ancestor of the Ji people appeared beside Ji Wuji and took him back into his body. Then he left angrily. Ji Wuji's elimination made all the geniuses extremely nervous. Only now did they realize that being qualified to participate in the Gate of Heaven test didn't mean that they could rest easy. There is still a possibility that they could be eliminated. After all the geniuses on the Primal Chaos Golden Roll had finished their tests, it was time for the geniuses from the Ancient God Realm. These geniuses were all quite young, but none of them had surpassed Tianbao. Even the handsome and extraordinary youth named Di Yuan had cultivated for more than 1,000,000 years. Xuanqing's test caused quite a stir. She was less than 500,000 years old, which was only second to Tian Bao and Su Fang. It was quite shocking. The last person to arrive at the first gate of heaven was a woman wearing a black cloak. She appeared quite mysterious. Her test results were even more shocking. The golden Xianguang released by the gate of heaven had condensed an arc of light that was more than 10,000 feet long. This meant that she was less than 100,000 years old. In an instant, this mysterious woman became the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone was speculating about her origins. Su Fang looked at the black-clothed woman, and there was an explosion in his head. Goddess Luo. Unexpectedly, Goddess Luo had also come to participate in the Yuan Tiangong entrance test. Every scene that he experienced in the illusory world of disillusionment judgment mirror flowed through Su Fang's mind. Su Fang's heart was filled with disappointment and bitterness. Xuanxin and Su Fang had the experience of yin and yang dual cultivation. She was like one with Su Fang. She immediately sensed the change in Su Fang's emotions and couldn't help but be puzzled. Su Fang, do you know her? I do. Su Fang braced himself and answered, suppressing the distracting thoughts in his heart. Just as Goddess Luo had said, they came from two completely different worlds. No matter what happened in the past, they would never cross paths again in the future. The illusory world was just an illusory world. He could just treat it as a spring dream. Once he woke up, everything would be over. Chapter 2140. The first gate of heaven test ended. The rankings of the geniuses were listed on the gold roll in the sky above the huge palace. The person in first place was Goddess Luo. Second was Heavenly Treasure. Su Fang was ranked third, and Xuanxin was ranked 12th. The first gate of heaven tested one's age, which was something that no one could change. Although the results of the test did not represent one's future achievements, it was related to the overall score. The rankings on the gold roll made all the geniuses nervous. The experts from 8 forces were even more nervous than the geniuses who entered the palace to take the test, so the second gate of heaven test received a lot of attention. The middle-aged man from Yuan Tiangong appeared in the square in front of the second gate of heaven. The second gate of heaven test is talent. Many geniuses looked as if they had expected this. Who knew? The middle-aged man continued. The second gate of heaven test is not the cultivation aptitude or talent that you think it is, but the innate cultivation aptitude that cultivators are born with. All the acquired aptitude, be it the consumption of heaven and earth spirit treasures or the cultivation of supreme techniques, are not counted. Even if the G people's genius who was eliminated in the first gate of heaven passes in terms of age, the talent that he has obtained through 6 lifetimes of cultivation and the 9 revolutions rebirth technique is useless in this test. It's the same for all of you. If your innate aptitude is insufficient, it will be difficult for you to pass this test, no matter how good your cultivation aptitude is. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the geniuses in the square were in an uproar. They did not expect the so-called talent to be like this. We are in big trouble now. Su Fang also did not expect the second gate of heaven test to be like this. Talent? Su Fang's innate cultivation aptitude was at most that of a small world cultivator, and he had almost failed to become a cultivator back then. He was able to reach his current height because of the 9 yang, 9 changes, the heavenly secret life, shrinking technique, the purple chi dharma spirit, the origin sacred mirror, and other spirit treasures and dharma treasures. He also had an extremely tough Tao heart. If they followed the second gate of heaven test, Su Fang would be in great danger. He might be eliminated in the second gate of heaven like Ji Wuji. What should I do? Su Fang's mind was in a mess. Su Fang is a cultivator who ascended from a large world. In terms of natural talent, how can he compare to the peerless geniuses of the myriad worlds? The Blue Dome Domain Lord was also extremely anxious. Su Fang's results were directly related to their quota to enter Yuan Tiangong. How could he not be anxious? Xian Lingzi snorted and said, "This kind of test is really unfair. How can the supreme existence of Yuan Tiangong test a genius in this way?" The other experts from the forces of the other star areas were also discussing, feeling that it was unfair. Innate talent is the foundation of a cultivator. No matter how much good fortune one obtains, it cannot change one's innate talent. Only Tao Emperor's voice came from the void. If one's aptitude is lacking, even if they can reach the peak, it will still be a castle in the air. Thus, aptitude is extremely important to any cultivator. The Yuan Tiangong test to enter the imperial palace was decided after repeated discussions between all the venerable sovereigns. If anyone dares to speak out again, they will be killed without mercy. Only Tao Emperor's voice, full of murderous intent, echoed in everyone's minds. All the discussions suddenly stopped. No one dared to say another word to offend the dignity of the venerable sovereigns. Su Feng, no matter what the result is, I'll be with you. Xuanqing transmitted her primordial spirit to Su Feng. She was born in a large world, and her achievements were mainly due to the Ice Phoenix real body. Her aptitude was definitely not as good as those geniuses who were born noble. However, compared to Su Feng, Xuanqing's aptitude was definitely much higher. We can only take one step at a time. If we are really eliminated, no one can change that. Su Feng responded with a wry smile. He had thought that he could at least make it into the top 1,000 and get the 10,000 quota to enter Yuan Tiangong. He didn't expect that the second heaven would be tested in such a way. The path to enter Yuan Tiangong might be completely blocked, let alone get the quota. Those geniuses who were born humble didn't look good. The aptitude test was obviously disadvantageous for them. These geniuses naturally had outstanding innate aptitude. But how could they compare with those who were born in powerful forces, especially the peerless geniuses of the ancient god clans? Among other things, those geniuses who were born noble had parents with extraordinary aptitudes. This determined that they were born with innate aptitude that ordinary people didn't have. Moreover, these geniuses were nourished by all kinds of natural treasures and pills when they were still in their mother's wombs. Those geniuses who were born humble couldn't compare at all. Reality was so cruel. It was like some people were born in a royal family, while most people were born in an ordinary family. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't change what they were born with. The second Heaven Gate test will automatically release the Xian Guang to test your aptitude. It will show different colors of aptitude light. There are 7 colors in total: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Red is the lowest, and purple is the highest. Let's begin. The second Heaven Gate test will begin with the geniuses of the ancient god world. The middle-aged man waved his hand. A genius from the 4 mythological beast clans of the ancient god world walked proudly to the second Heaven Gate and stood still. He stretched out his right hand and pressed on the gate. Rays of golden Xian Guang flowed from his palm into the genius's body. A moment later, the azure Xian Guang bloomed from the genius's body and was sucked into the gate. The gate opened more than half. The young genius passed through the gate and came to the square space in front of the third Heaven Gate. This genius's aptitude light was blue, second only to the highest purple. It was obvious that his innate aptitude was extraordinary. Next, the geniuses from the ancient god world passed the second Heaven Gate test. These geniuses from the ancient god world were all extraordinarily talented. The lowest was light blue, and the highest was purple. This made the other geniuses feel pressured, and they all fell silent. Fanshu flew out. There are some things that you can't fight for. What I was born with, you have to work hard for your whole life. You may not even get it. How do you compare? Looking down at Su Feng, Fanshu's eyes were full of contempt. Although the geniuses from the ancient god world were angry, they couldn't find words to refute. What Fanshu said was true. The heavenly Tao was so unfair. Who could go against the heavens and change their fate? Fanshu did have the right to be arrogant. Her aptitude light was extremely shocking. It was dark purple. Then, there was that extraordinary youth named Di Yuan. His test results were even more shocking. The light of innate talent he emitted was shockingly a purple-gold color. It was mysterious, profound, and carried a type of unparalleled nobility. The purple-gold light swept out. The Heaven Gate shook and opened for him. Such a scene caused everyone to be shocked, and they all started to guess Di Yuan's origins. The spirit of the Golden Rainbow King's world spirit spoke from Su Fang's inner world. This person is not simple. If I'm not wrong, he should be from the most powerful and mysterious imperial people in the ancient god world. Legend has it that the imperial people are the ones who control the heavenly Tao. The imperial people who control the heavenly Tao? Su Fang couldn't help but be shocked. This Di Yuan had such a bloodline. In terms of aptitude, who could compare to him? Kid, don't be like that old monster who pretended to be a young genius in the G people. You were eliminated in the second heaven gate test. I'm still counting on you to break through the shackles of heaven and earth and go beyond the heavens. Su Fang said helplessly, I can't change my aptitude. I can only resign myself to fate. The Golden Rainbow King laughed strangely. Resign yourself to fate? That's not like you. At this moment, Goddess Luo flew to the second heaven gate. The Golden Rainbow King said, I wonder what kind of aptitude this little girl from beyond the heavens has. Su Fang looked at Goddess Luo with a complicated expression. Strange. She has already obtained the piercing sun golden rainbow. Why didn't she go to the celestial worthy mountain? Maybe she feels that her cultivation isn't high enough. She plans to cultivate in the Yuan Tiangong and enter the celestial worthy mountain when she has full confidence. After all, the celestial worthy mountain isn't that easy to enter. Even with the piercing sun golden rainbow, it's not a place where ordinary people can enter. I almost lost my life back then. Strange. Since one can enter the celestial worthy mountain with the piercing sun golden rainbow and find the reason for the changes in heaven and earth, why would those supreme existences create the Yuan Tiangong and select geniuses? This little girl's origin is mysterious. There must be a secret that no one knows. The celestial worthy mountain's matters are obviously not as simple as you think. Goddess Luo had obtained first place in the first heaven gate test. Now that she was taking the second heaven gate test, she immediately attracted everyone's attention. Even some invisible eyes were watching her. No one expected Goddess Luo's right hand to push the heaven gate. The second heaven gate actually opened with a loud bang. Goddess Luo stepped through without any obstruction. It was as easy as eating or drinking. Everyone was shocked and astonished. The middle-aged man from the Yuan Tiangong was also shocked. Just as he was about to ask Goddess Luo to take the test again, only Dao Di's primordial spirit voice sounded. This girl passed with the highest score. The middle-aged man's deep eyes were filled with shock. Su Fang knew very well why Goddess Luo was in such a state during the second heaven gate test. That was because Goddess Luo came from beyond the heavens. Her talent at the second heaven gate was unfathomable. Everyone was speculating about Goddess Luo's origin. Even Di Yuan, who had been unperturbed all this while, carefully sized up Goddess Luo. The second heaven gate test proceeded in an orderly manner. Soon, it was Xuanxin's turn. She was very nervous. Even many powerful figures from the Divine Phoenix ancient clan were nervous. After all, Xuanxin came from the outside world. In terms of talent, he was definitely far inferior to the geniuses from the other realms. If he was eliminated at the second heaven gate, where would the Divine Phoenix ancient clan's dignity go? Seeing Su Fang's calm eyes, Xuanxin calmed down. She reached out and pressed her right hand on the heaven gate. A dazzling golden xianguang entered his body. The next moment, a thick purple xianguang swept out from Xuanxin's body. It carried a sacred and noble aura. Boom! The heaven gate completely opened. Such a result surpassed the other geniuses from the ancient god world and was second only to Di Yuan. Chapter 2141. When Xuanxin was still in her mother's womb, she fused with a drop of ice phoenix blood essence, so her innate talent became extraordinary. That's great. Su Fang thought for a while and immediately understood. All the geniuses were shocked. They looked at Xuanxin with burning eyes again. With such a peerless appearance and talent, which man wouldn't be tempted? Looking at Xuanxin and then at Su Fang, they felt that Su Fang was like a toad. They couldn't wait for him to be eliminated in the second gate of heaven test. In front of the third gate of heaven, Fan Shu said to Di Yuan, Young Master Di Yuan, Phoenix Xuanxin of the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan is barely qualified to be your servant. Di Yuan smiled faintly and didn't say anything, but he still looked at Xuanxin. 10,587. As soon as the middle-aged Yuan Tiangong man's voice fell, Su Fong took a deep breath and stepped forward to the second gate of heaven. As long as you can barely pass the second gate of heaven, don't be eliminated. Su Fong was worried because the result of the test was not only related to his future, but also the fate of many people. Once he stopped at the second gate of heaven, it wasn't hard to imagine what would be waiting for him. If he lost the qualification to enter the Yuan Tiangong, the primordial chaos golden list would no longer protect him. As for Emperor Sangxiu, he wouldn't care about a genius who couldn't even pass the second gate of heaven test. In this way, what awaited Su Fong was the Ji people, Sanskrit, and all the powerful forces he had offended. Not only him, but even his family and friends would be doomed. Countless senses fell on Su Fong, making Su Fong's heart feel heavier and heavier. Xian Lingzi, Qingxiong Territorial Lord, Zhu Yanjun, and the others were all worried. Su Fong, you can definitely pass the second gate of heaven test. Xuanxin trembled slightly and clenched her fists. Her nails dug into her palms and blood seeped out. Just as Su Fong expected, the Ji people, Sanskrit, the Divine Phoenix ancient clan, and many other deity clans and forces who wanted to tear him to pieces were all watching him. If he couldn't pass the second gate of heaven and lose the protection of Emperor Sangxiu, these powerful forces would pounce on Su Fong like hungry wolves and swallow him whole. Second gate of heaven, open for me. Su Fong shouted coldly and pressed his right palm on the gate of heaven. Hiss. Su. Of Xianguang. Red. Moreover, it was a faint red color. It was very weak and almost impossible to see with the naked eye. The heavenly gate shook slightly and then remained motionless. In an instant, Su Fong's heart sank into a bottomless abyss. His body was frozen, and he fell into endless despair. Sighs of disappointment could be heard from the unseen world. The square in front of the third gate of heaven and the second gate of heaven, as well as the surrounding void, burst into an uproar. Su Fong's talent is so poor. Light red? How can such a good-for-nothing enter the Yuan Tiangong? A good-for-nothing who can't even pass the second gate of heaven test. Let's see how arrogant you can be now. Exclamations, mockery, and curses swept over like a tide and engulfed Su Fong. Numerous gazes filled with killing intent locked on his Su Fong. Once he left, what awaited him would be a merciless oppression. Su Fong, you didn't rely on talent to reach your current height in the small world. You relied on hard work. This failure doesn't mean anything. You have to pull yourself together. Xuanxin's primordial spirit said, Su Fong, you can go against the heavens and change your fate. Your fate is in your hands. Another primordial spirit said, it was Goddess Luo. That's right. The heavens can be defied, and fate can be changed. I, Su Fong, was able to rise from a small world to become a top genius of the myriad worlds. I didn't rely on talent, nor did I rely on my background. I relied on my own efforts to change fate time and time again. At this moment, Su Fong's decadence was gone. His eyes flashed with determination and dominance. As the faint red light released from his body was about to dissipate, Primordius Heavenly Palace's middle-aged man's majestic voice echoed out, 10,587. The second-level Heavenly Gate test failed before he could finish speaking. I control the heavenly secrets. If I want to live, the heavens can't take it away. I control the heavenly secrets. If I want to live, the heavens can't live without me. I control the heavenly secrets. If I'm destroyed, everything will be destroyed. I control the heavenly secrets. If I live forever, I will never die. I control the heavenly secrets. If I ascend to the heavens, the gate of heaven will open. I control the heavenly secrets. If I'm alive, the heavens and the earth will shake. I control the heavenly secrets. If I'm the master, all the heavens will submit. I control the heavenly secrets. If the heavens punish me, I will go against the heavens. I control the heavenly secrets. If the earth buries me, I will break the earth. An unyielding pride and a peerless dominance that dared to fight against the heavens exploded from Su Fang's body along with the divine power of the heavens. A kind of power that could go against the heavens and seize the heavenly secrets caused the dim red Xianguang that was about to dissipate to suddenly become incomparably bright. Even the color changed. It was no longer light red, but a strange color. It looked like there was no color at all, but it contained all the luster in the world. Boom! The Xianguang bombarded the gate of heaven. After a moment of silence, the gate of heaven opened with a loud bang. This gate of heaven that was tightly closed to Su Fang was forcibly opened by Su Fang. Su Fang, who was about to stop at the second gate of heaven, used a supreme divine power to go against the heavens and change his fate. The heavenly secret's life shrinking technique. Su Fangda stepped into the gate of heaven and was sent to the square in front of the third gate of heaven by a divine power. The mockery and cursing that was like a tide came to an abrupt end in an instant, and the world was completely silent. The middle-aged man from Yuan Tiangong was dumbfounded and didn't know what to do for a moment. Even the venerable One Dao, who was hidden in the void, didn't make a sound for a long time. What kind of divine power is this? It can actually change the rules of the entrance test. Going against the heavens and changing one's fate, this is the true way to go against the heavens and change one's fate. Cheating, Su Fang is openly cheating. Why don't you suppress him? The venerable One Dao's majestic voice suddenly sounded. Silence. The Yuan Tiangong has its own decisions. How can you recklessly talk about it? The square and the void outside finally quieted down. The Yuan Tiangong. In the deepest part of the palace, strands of primordial spirit consciousness were engaged in a silent confrontation. This time's entrance test was jointly formulated by the many supreme existences of the Yuan Tiangong. Su Fang openly despised the dignity of the Yuan Tiangong and went against the rules. Such behavior should be suppressed on the spot as a warning to others. That's right. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. What kind of place is the Yuan Tiangong? How can the rules be trampled on by a junior? Killing him is a bit too much. Just expel him directly. These powerhouses who were talking were all the founders of the Yuan Tiangong. They were the top existences in the universe. Some were from the ancient god world, while others were venerable sovereigns from the ancient god world. These supreme existences, especially the venerable sovereigns from the ancient god clans and powerful forces, paid the most attention to rules. Without strict rules and laws, any powerful god clan or sect would quickly fall apart. Su Fang used his supreme divine power to change his own fate, which meant that he had gone against the rules set by these powerhouses. These peerless powerhouses would never allow such a heresy to exist. Moreover, among these supreme existences who created the Yuan Tiangong, one of them was Sanskrit from the ancient god world. Su Fang's fate was about to be decided. A primordial spirit suddenly said, "This boy must stay. Sang Xiao, you are just Su Fang's temporary guardian. He is not your disciple or descendant. Why do you have to protect him and ignore the rules of the Yuan Tiangong? We nurture peerless geniuses and eventually send them to the celestial worthy mountain to change the fate of the universe. Isn't this also defying the heavens and changing fate? Why can't Su Fang change his own fate?" Emperor Sang Qiu's words made many venerable sovereigns fall silent. The purpose of creating the Yuan Tiangong was not only to nurture geniuses, but also to select peerless geniuses who were qualified to enter the celestial worthy mountain. The destruction of the three realms and the death of the heavenly way was the fate of the universe and all gods. The actions of these venerable sovereigns were also to defy the heavens and change fate, to win a glimmer of hope for the people of the three realms. Just as Emperor Sang Qiu had said, these supreme existences were all trying to defy the heavens and change fate. Why couldn't they allow a genius to change his own fate? The venerable sovereign of Sanskrit snorted. In this way, how can you convince the masses? What about the dignity of the Yuan Tiangong? Su Fang's result can be considered a compromise. It can also be considered a punishment for him, and it will protect the dignity of the Yuan Tiangong. As for convincing the masses, why should the Yuan Tiangong need to convince the masses? The voice of Emperor Sang Qiu's primordial spirit was filled with a kind of lofty dominance. All the venerable sovereigns were speechless. The venerable sovereign of Sanskrit also fell silent. Outside of the Yuan Tiangong, Su Fang's name on the gold roll above the illusion of the huge palace suddenly shattered and disappeared from the gold roll. Then, it appeared in the 6,000th place. The middle-aged man in the Yuan Tiangong shouted loudly, "Number 10,587 has passed the second gate of heaven test. His result will be halved." He did not expect that the higher-ups of the Yuan Tiangong would finally make such a decision. He actually passed. Su Fang was ecstatic. He clenched his fists tightly. Xuanqin was overjoyed. Goddess Luo, who was wearing a cloak, also heaved a sigh of relief. Xian Lingzi, the Blue Dome Domain Lord, and the others all clapped their hands and laughed. Their hearts that were hanging high in the air finally settled down. Di Yuan frowned. He was obviously dissatisfied with the decision of the higher-ups of the Yuan Tiangong, but he did not say anything. Fan Shu, Buji, and the others were greatly disappointed. Although they were dissatisfied, they did not dare to say a word. They did not dare to question the decision of the higher-ups of the Yuan Tiangong, but it did not mean that the others did not dare to. Chapter 2142. So it was Ji Wuji. After being eliminated at the first gate of heaven, Ji Wuji remained in the void outside, filled with unwillingness. Seeing that Su Fang had failed to pass the second gate of heaven test, Ji Wuji was naturally overjoyed. The Ji people's first ancestor and the other Ji people's powerhouses were already prepared to make a move. The moment Su Fang came out, they would suppress Su Fang with thunder. Who knew? The situation had actually taken a turn for the better. Su Fang had actually passed the second gate of heaven test. This result caused Ji Wuji to fall from the peak of his happiness to the bottomless abyss once again. How could he be willing to accept this? In his shock and anger, Ji Wuji completely lost his usual composure. He immediately voiced his doubts to vent the anger and dissatisfaction in his heart. The first ancestor of the Ji people's first ancestor's divine light flickered. By the time he wanted to stop Ji Wuji, it was already too late. Dissatisfied? So what? Only Dao Di Zun's indifferent voice suddenly sounded, followed by the descent of a heavenly Dao's divine might. The Di Zun had personally made a move. Ji Wuji did not have the slightest chance to resist and turned into ashes in a flash. Ji Wuji had lost his life just like that. "Lord Di Zun, please forgive us." The Ji people's first ancestor and the other Ji people's powerhouses trembled as they knelt down. They were afraid that only Dao Di Zun's anger would implicate the entire Ji people. Fortunately, after only Dao Di Zun killed Ji Wuji, he did not continue to make a move. Thus, the Ji people were lucky enough to escape this calamity. No one felt that there was anything wrong with the scene of Ji Wuji's death. Although the Ji people were considered a powerful divine clan in the myriad worlds, questioning the Yuan Tiangong was purely courting death. Ji Wuji actually died just like that. It's such a pity that it's hard to avenge Senior's sister, Xu Wanjin. When Su Fang saw this scene, he once again experienced the sorrow of being a weakling. So what if they were the Ji people? Although the Ji people were one of the ancient divine clans ranked in the top 1,000 in the myriad worlds, in the face of a venerable emperor, the Ji people were still like ants waiting to be slaughtered. However, Su Fang naturally did not feel the slightest bit of sympathy for Ji Wuji. He only felt pity for Xu Wanjin. With Ji Wuji's death, it would be difficult for Xu Wanjin to personally take revenge. You almost couldn't even pass through the second gate of heaven. What qualifications do you have to be my master? Celestial Bao transmitted its voice to Su Fang. Celestial Bao also passed the test of the second gate of heaven smoothly. Su Fang was very surprised that Yuan Tiangong's test rules actually allowed him to exist. Celestial Treasure's performance was not as stunning as it had been in the first gate of heaven test. However, he was created by the Heavenly Treasure Emperor using the supreme Great Tao of artifact forging and various spirit objects of heaven and earth. When he was born, he had almost been punished by the heavens. Although Celestial Bao's talent was not as good as Di Yuan's or some of the other geniuses of the ancient divine world, he was still much better than ordinary geniuses. Su Fong could not compare to him. Su Fong replied coldly, "Talent does not mean anything. If the heavens do not want something, then I will directly plunder it from the heavens. If you are unwilling to fulfill your previous promise, then I will not force you to do anything. However, if you continue to provoke me, then don't blame me for being merciless and directly suppressing you." Celestial Bao snorted and did not say anything else. At this moment, Buji's sarcastic voice sounded, "Lowly ant, you were lucky to get away with it this time. Let's see if you will be so lucky in the future." Some of the other geniuses also mocked and ridiculed. Su Fong was too lazy to pay attention to this neither yin nor yang monster. He closed his eyes. The golden rainbow monarch's voice sounded from the depths of Su Fong's body. "This monster who is neither male nor female is truly hateful. Brat, do you want to let this monster taste the stench that can be smelled from 1,000,000 miles away, just like that brat from the heavenly Peng celestial race?" Thinking about the stench on the heavenly Peng celestial race's body in the golden rainbow monarch's world, Su Fong shuddered. However, the golden rainbow monarch's suggestion was not bad. He ignored the golden rainbow monarch. After forming a seal, Su Fong shattered the insides of his body and turned it into a blood state. He crazily devoured spiritual objects and blood crystals to recover the life force that he had used to execute the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking art. Executing the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking art just now had consumed 1/3 of Su Fong's life force. His hair had turned white. Although Su Fong did not lack anything that could replenish his life force, the feeling of watching his life force slip away and walking towards death made Su Fong not want to experience this kind of horror again. Sensing that Su Fong's life force was gradually recovering, Xuanqin finally let out a sigh of relief. Following that, there were a few more accidents in the second gate of heaven test. Like Su Fong, there were 3 geniuses who failed the test and opened the gate of heaven. However, the difference between them and Su Fong was that it was not that these 3 geniuses were not talented enough. It was just that what they had now was not their own. 2 of the geniuses had possessed other people's bodies to obtain amazing talent. These 2 were directly chased out by the Heaven Punisher and lost the qualifications to enter the Yuan Tiangong. The other genius was a Demon Dao expert. He used a planting technique to devour a peerless genius, but was exposed during the test. This person's fate was even worse. He was exposed by Uni Dao the Arch on the spot, and was directly suppressed by the Heaven Punisher, his soul destroyed. After all the geniuses had completed the second gate of heaven test, the rankings on the gold roll in the giant palace mirage and the first gate of heaven test had undergone earth-shattering changes. The one ranked first was still the mysterious and unfathomable Holy Maiden Luo, while Di Yuan jumped to second place. Everyone concluded that Goddess Luo's first place was only temporary and would be replaced by Di Yuan sooner or later. Xuanqin was ranked 7th, and Tianbao was ranked 13th. The rest of the top 100 were almost all occupied by the peerless geniuses from the ancient god world. There were very few geniuses from various star fields and god clan who could enter the top 100. From this, it could be seen that the ancient god world's geniuses' innate cultivation aptitude was terrifying. The other geniuses had no choice but to submit to them. Su Fong's ranking was finally fixed at around 7,300. Although he did not fall to the bottom, he had already faded into the crowd. Naturally, there were many people who mocked and ridiculed Su Fong for this ranking. The domain lord of the Blue Dome domain was also greatly disappointed. He had placed all his hopes on Su Fong, hoping to get a quota from Su Fong to enter the Yuan Tiangong. Now it seemed that even if Su Fong could take out some quotas, the number would not be many. The other experts from the Blue Dome domain, such as Zhu Yanjun, Qishao Shinjun, and the domain lord of the Star Billow domain, were also disappointed. Which of these experts did not have relatives, friends, or disciples? Which one of them did not want to enter the Yuan Tiangong when the catastrophe was coming? At this moment, It seemed that there was not much hope of getting a quota from Su Fong. Even the Blue Dome Domain Lord found it difficult to get a quota, let alone them. Domain Lord, do you want to reconsider the deal proposed by the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce? Fatty Zhu of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce wasted no time in coming to the Blue Dome Domain Lord. The Blue Dome Domain Lord no longer hesitated and said decisively, I agree to exchange the 9 realms of the Blue Dome Domain and the 10 Directions realm for 1,000 quotas to enter the Yuan Tiangong. The fat man chuckled. Lord Domain Ruler is mistaken. The number of spots to enter Primordius Heavenly Palace has already risen. Lord Domain Ruler's half-good fortune divine artifact and the 10-directional Great World can only be exchanged for 100 spots at most. The Blue Dome Domain Lord's face darkened. Steward Zhu, aren't you being too greedy? Since Domain Lord does not agree, why don't we reconsider? Fatty Zhu laughed and looked as if he had the Blue Dome Domain Lord under his control. Let's hope for a miracle. The Blue Dome Domain Lord looked at Su Fong with a glimmer of hope in his heart. I announced the test for the 3rd gate of heaven. The middle-aged Yuan Tiangong man spoke again, attracting everyone's attention. Next, it should be a test of strength, right? Most people guessed. The Yuan Tiangong was a place to cultivate geniuses. Whether it was age or talent, strength was the most important factor. The middle-aged man said majestically, the 3rd gate of heaven tests one's luck. Luck. The test of the 3rd gate of heaven is actually a test of faintly discernible fate. I thought that Primordius Heavenly Palace's entrance test would be different, but I never imagined it would be so simple. First is age, then talent, and finally destiny. More than 10,000 geniuses and countless experts in the periphery whispered to each other. However, after thinking about it calmly, it was reasonable to test one's luck to enter the Yuan Tiangong. Why was that? Luck was an invisible and mysterious power that the heavenly way bestowed upon Dharma treasures, spiritual items, spiritual treasures, and life forms. For mortals, this power was able to turn misfortune into blessings, and everything would go according to their wishes. Some emperors and supreme beings in the human world would have a purple aura around them. When mortal cultivators condensed their golden core, Dharma treasures, spiritual items, and spiritual treasures were born, there would often be some signs of purple aura. This was the specific manifestation of luck. For cultivators, luck was a kind of power bestowed by the heavenly way. Cultivators with strong luck could not only turn misfortune into blessings, but they could also comprehend the heavenly way's laws and control nature. For cultivators, a bottleneck or shackle could make it difficult for them to move forward. It would be impossible for them to break through in their lifetime. Not to mention, there were also countless unpredictable dangers. If the heavenly way did not bestow upon cultivators the power to protect them, they would not be able to reach the peak of cultivation. Even if you had a heaven-defying cultivation aptitude or a powerful background, if you did not have luck, everything would be for naught. The importance of luck to cultivators could be imagined. At this time, the catastrophe was sweeping through the heavens. If one did not have great luck, it would be difficult to even survive, let alone other things. For the top geniuses who could enter the celestial worthy mountain, strength was secondary. Luck was definitely the most important factor. At this time, it was normal for Yuan Tiangong to use luck to test geniuses. However, luck was ethereal and difficult to capture. It was very mysterious. Only those supreme experts with great magical powers could catch a glimpse of it through some heaven-defying magical powers. Chapter 2143. The content of the 3rd Gate of Heaven test was announced. More than 1,000 geniuses from the ancient god world, as well as those from the noble god world, were all overjoyed. Being born in a supreme god clan or a powerful force was a kind of luck. Those lowly cultivators were born at the bottom, which was a sign of bad luck. In the eyes of these geniuses from powerful forces, the 3rd Gate of Heaven test was prepared especially for them. Q8 ZBSB, a test of luck? They were born with an advantage. How could those lowly geniuses compare to them? A test of luck? The 3rd Gate of Heaven test is actually about luck? Su Fong was shocked and stunned. He didn't expect the test to have such a content. The unrivaled powerhouses of Primordius' heavenly palace truly have supernatural powers that defy the heavens. They can even test the mysterious destiny of the void. Su Fong was extremely shocked. Soon after, wild joy surged in his heart. Seeing the expressions of those noble geniuses, Su Fong chuckled. In terms of luck, how many people can compare to me, who has a purple cloud Dharma spirit? This test is really unfair. Sun Qi and the other lowly geniuses all looked indignant. Sun Qi was originally a lowly slave. Through his own efforts, he finally amazed everyone in the Divine Child battle and was valued by the Supreme Masters. He was even listed on the Chaos Golden Roll. To be able to reach such heights, Sun Qi naturally had luck that ordinary people couldn't match. However, compared to those geniuses from the God clans and powerful forces, Sun Qi's luck was insignificant. There weren't many other geniuses like Sun Qi, but they weren't much better than Sun Qi. How unfair was the heavenly way? This was the heavenly way, who could defy the heavens and change their own luck. However, with Ji Wuji as an example, although Sun Qi and the other geniuses felt that it was unfair, no one dared to say a word. At this time, Di Yuan said, "Sir, luck is ethereal and mysterious. It is difficult to capture. Just what method does Primordius' heavenly palace use to test out this ethereal destiny?" Di Yuan's voice was deep and steady, revealing a strong confidence and calmness. The question he asked was also what many geniuses wanted to know. They all looked at the middle-aged Yuan Tiangong man. If it were other geniuses asking, the middle-aged man would reprimand them without the slightest trace of politeness. However, Di Yuan's status was extraordinary. Not only did the middle-aged man not reprimand him, he was instead polite. Although luck is ethereal, it's not without signs. In the 3 dimensions, there are numerous divine beasts, spirit objects, and spirit treasures that were born from the fortune of the heavens and the earth, and they're innately extremely sensitive to karmic luck. When they encounter cultivators that possess supreme karmic luck, they'll automatically appear. These divine beasts, spirit objects, spirit treasures, or phenomena of the heavens and the earth are called talismans. The supreme masters of Yuan Tiangong sealed these mythical beasts, spiritual objects, spiritual treasures, and all kinds of auspicious signs on the 3rd gate of heaven. The auspicious signs produced by the geniuses will be different, and the degree of opening of the gate of heaven will also be different. This will be used to determine the level of your luck and calculate the test results. These talismans are divided into 5 grades. The highest grade auspicious sign is called excellent auspicious. Below it are great auspicious, upper auspicious, middle auspicious, and lower auspicious. The middle-aged man's introduction broadened the horizons of many geniuses. They never expected that they could use such a method to test their luck. The 3rd gate of heaven test will be carried out according to the ranking of the first 2 gates of heaven test. Goddess Luo, you're the first to take the test. The middle-aged Yuan Tiangong man looked at Goddess Luo and said majestically, when Goddess Luo was taking the 2nd gate of heaven test, the gate of heaven automatically opened, surprising everyone. Now that she was the first to take the test, it naturally attracted everyone's attention. Goddess Luo slowly landed in front of the gate of heaven. I wonder what kind of talismans this woman will produce. It's already not easy to produce upper auspicious. This woman is mysterious and unpredictable. It's hard to guess what grade of auspicious sign she will produce. While everyone was discussing, Goddess Luo pushed open the 3rd gate of heaven and took a step forward. She directly passed through the gate of heaven and landed on the array formation square outside the 4th gate of heaven without any hesitation. Everyone was completely dumbfounded. Even Di Yuan, who had been calm all this while, raised his eyebrows and looked at Goddess Luo's back in confusion. Su Fong touched the tip of his nose and smiled to himself. Goddess Luo came from beyond the heavens. She's not shackled by the universe, nor is she protected by the heavenly law. It's naturally difficult to test her luck. To her, Primordius' heavenly palace's entrance test is nothing but a sham. It's completely meaningless. I really have no idea why she would want to enter Primordius' heavenly palace. The middle-aged man from Primordius' heavenly palace was also stunned. Then, the voice of the venerable emperor's nascent spirit sounded again. The middle-aged man regained his dignity and said majestically, "Next, Yuan." Although the geniuses were confused, they didn't dare to question anything. Fanshu looked at Goddess Luo with cold eyes. "This woman killed my Sanskrit progenitor in the Brahma Saint pool and ruined my plan. If I have a chance, I must kill her." Under everyone's gazes, Yuan arrived at the third gate of heaven. Just as he approached the gate of heaven, an extremely pleasant sound of nature rang out from the gate of heaven. Immediately after, a peaceful and mysterious purple gas floated out from the heavenly gate. It was filled with the aura of the creation of heaven and earth. It circled around him and quickly condensed into 5 lifelike, auspicious beasts: the Qilin, the azure dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise. These 5 auspicious beasts were revered as the 5 spirits. These 5 divine beasts were not ordinary divine beasts. Instead, they were beasts of the heavens and earth that were condensed from auspicious qi. They represented supreme luck. The middle-aged Yuan Tiangong man shouted in a trembling voice, "The Qilin and Phoenix spirits, the king of heaven and earth." Whoosh, gasps of surprise could be heard from the square and the surrounding void. As expected of the imperial people who controlled the heavenly law of all the worlds, Yuan's luck could be said to be heaven-defying. He actually attracted 5 auspicious beasts to appear together. This child has supreme fortune. He will definitely be a peerless figure in all the worlds in the future. If the plan of those supreme beings succeeds, the peerless genius who can finally enter the celestial worthy mountain and stop the changes of the world will be none other than Yuan. There are rumors that the ancestors of the imperial people were actually the disciples of the heavenly Lord of creation. They were entrusted with the heavy responsibility of controlling the heavenly law of all the worlds in the universe. It seems that the rumors are most likely true. Under everyone's shocked and respectful gazes, Yuan smiled faintly and walked calmly into the wide, open gate of heaven. The following geniuses attracted different auspicious energies during the test. The purple energy released from the gate of heaven condensed into auspicious stars, auspicious snow, auspicious rain, auspicious clouds, or the combination of the sun and the moon, the alignment of the 5 stars, and other strange auspicious phenomena. Although these auspicious energies couldn't be compared to the auspicious energies of Yuan's 5 spirits, they were all great auspicious energies and had astonishing fortune. These peerless geniuses were all arrogant and proud. After the second gate of heaven test, Xuanxin ranked 7th. Soon, it was her turn to go on stage. A high-pitched chirp sounded from the gate of heaven. Then, a gust of purple energy suddenly burst out. After circling around Xuanxin, it quickly condensed into a vermilion bird auspicious beast. Unexpectedly, Xuanxin also attracted a supreme, auspicious energy. Although it couldn't be compared to Yuan's 5 spirits, it was a level higher than the other geniuses. Everyone couldn't help but sigh at Xuanxin's supreme fortune. The powerhouses of the Divine Phoenix ancient clan were also proud. However, their gazes towards Su Fong became more and more unfriendly. I really don't know how Phoenix Xuanxin thought of it. With such great talent and fortune, why would she fall for a toad like Su Fong? I heard that Phoenix Xuanxin was Su Fong's cultivation partner in the outside world. She still refuses to abandon her former cultivation partner. This can only mean that Phoenix Xuanxin is loyal and righteous. It's just that Su Fong is a pile of cow dung. Such a good flower has been ruined. Everyone was discussing, and they didn't avoid Su Fong at all. Su Fong could only smile helplessly. It seems that this toad of mine has aroused public indignation. No one knew that Xuanxin's supreme fortune didn't come from the Ice Phoenix real body. Instead, it came from her dual cultivation with Su Fong. She shared Su Fong's fortune, which was why she could attract the vermilion bird auspicious beast. The third gate of heaven test was carried out in an orderly manner. After the top 1,000, the number of geniuses who could attract great, auspicious bees from the gate of heaven gradually decreased. Most of them were white rabbits, white apes, white bears, and other auspicious beasts. However, there were almost no fifth-grade lower auspicious beasts or inferior miscellaneous auspicious beasts. The geniuses who could enter the Yuan Tiangong were all extraordinarily lucky. However, compared to the geniuses of the ancient God World forces, and God Clan, they were much inferior. Number 10,587, Su Fong. Finally, it was Su Fong's turn. Domain Lord Qing Xiong and the others became nervous again. Su Fong's results were now ranked at the bottom. If he didn't have a shocking performance in the third Gate of Heaven test, it would be quite difficult for him to make a comeback. Fatty Zhu from Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce said with a smile, "Domain Lord, you put your hopes on Su Fong, but the result will be a big disappointment." Xian Lingzi snorted angrily, but didn't refute. This ant almost couldn't pass the second Gate of Heaven test. How much fortune can he have with mediocre talent? Fan Shu, who had passed the third Gate of Heaven test, sneered at Su Fong. Buji echoed Fan Shu and mocked Su Fong. It's already quite extraordinary that he could attract some miscellaneous auspicious beasts. When these words fell into Xuanxin's ears, she smiled and sighed in her heart. Su Fong will give everyone a big surprise this time. Su Fong approached the third Gate of Heaven. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Wisps of ethereal purple chi gushed out of the Gate of Heaven and quickly condensed into some fish, jade, and other auspicious beasts. Unrated, miscellaneous, auspicious. Surprised and mocking voices filled the air. However, the next moment, the Gate of Heaven trembled again and released wisps of purple chi, which condensed into various spiritual herbs and spiritual wood. The laughter suddenly weakened a lot, but the mocking laughter didn't stop. However, Su Fong wasn't done yet. The Gate of Heaven trembled 3 times in a row, and the purple chi released was more majestic and vast each time. First, there were some birds, then white rabbits, white apes, white bears, and other auspicious beasts, and then there were auspicious stars, auspicious snow, auspicious rain, auspicious clouds, and other strange auspicious beasts. Great auspicious beasts. And the auspicious beasts appeared together, unlike the previous geniuses who only attracted one type of auspicious beasts. The mocking laughter stopped abruptly, just when people thought Su Fong was about to end. Chapter 2144. Then, the purple chi rushed out and quickly condensed into 5 lifelike auspicious beasts: a qilin, an azure dragon, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, and a black tortoise. Not only that, the 5 types of auspicious beasts, as well as the various types of auspicious beasts under the auspicious auspices, such as great auspices, upper auspices, middle auspices, lower auspices, and miscellaneous auspices, all of them knelt down towards Su Fong as if they were worshipping him, worshipping of thousands of auspicious beasts. Only Dao Emperor, who was secretly watching Su Fong, was shocked and in disbelief. Those who were looking at Su Fong from the unseen world were also amazed. Needless to say, the square in front of the 4th Gate of Heaven, the square in front of the 3rd Gate of Heaven, and the surrounding void were silent in an instant. Boom! The 3rd Gate of Heaven was completely opened. Su Fongda stepped through the gate, and the auspicious beasts around him gradually dissipated. How is this possible? How can Su Fong's luck surpass Emperor Yuan? Emperor Yuan is an imperial people who control the power of Heavenly Way, while Su Fong is just from a low-level world. Heaven-defying. Su Fong's luck is simply heaven-defying. Everyone who saw this scene fell into a state of intense shock, and a burst of exclamations rang out. Cheating. Su Fong is cheating with the help of the purple Chi Dharma spirit. Among the many geniuses in the square, only Tian Bao knew why Su Fong could surpass Emperor Yuan's luck. It was because of the purple Chi Dharma spirit. Emperor Yuan's eyes flashed again and again. The Heavenly Way's luck is surpassing mine. Interesting, very interesting. Fan Shu and the other geniuses of the ancient God world looked at Su Fong with shock, disbelief, and of course, jealousy and dissatisfaction. and even killing intent. As everyone fell into a state of shock, the deepest depths of Primordius' heavenly palace were completely silent. All of the emperor powerhouses present were left dumbfounded. Sanskrit's venerable emperor shouted thunderously, "Cheating! This kid is using a spiritual treasure, which is cheating. This child has repeatedly challenged the rules of Yuan Tiangong. His right to enter the palace should be revoked, and he will never be allowed to enter the Yuan Tiangong." These peerless emperor masters were all supreme existences in the myriad worlds. So how could they not see Su Fang's purple cloud magic spirit? Sovereign Sang Chio's cold voice rang out. He was able to obtain a unique spiritual treasure, which in itself is a kind of supreme luck. How can it be considered cheating? He's just a junior in the hierarch realm, yet the Brahma monarch realm has been targeting him time and time again. Could there be some hidden reason? The venerable sovereign of Sanskrit retorted, "I am merely upholding the supreme rules of Yuan Tiangong. How could I be targeting him? As for you, Sang Chio, not only did you personally protect him, but you also defended him in all aspects. What exactly are you hiding? Rules?" The rules of the heavenly Tao were about to collapse. Clinging to the rules of Yuan Tiangong was just waiting for death. The selection of geniuses in Yuan Tiangong is precisely for those peerless characters who can break the rules, and not for trash who abide by the rules. The venerable sovereign of Sanskrit was speechless. He snorted and did not speak again. The test of the third gate of heaven came to an end very quickly, and nothing shocking happened again. The rankings of many geniuses on the gold roll also changed, but the changes were not very big. The geniuses of the ancient god world obviously had a huge advantage and pulled away from the other geniuses. However, the mysterious goddess Luo was still in the top position, while Di Yuan was in second place. Xuanqin's ranking jumped to third place, which was very eye-catching. The one with the biggest change was Su Fang. After the second gate of heaven test ended, his ranking was around 7,000. After the third gate of heaven test, he had jumped to around 1,300. Although his ranking was still far from the ancient god world geniuses, such a huge increase was indeed somewhat shocking. Xian Lingzi was very excited. Haha, Su Fang is indeed not an ordinary person. He rose to more than 1,000 in an instant. Manager Zhu, it seems that the territorial lord does not need to buy a slot at a high price from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. The Azure Dome territorial lord was also full of smiles and seemed very excited. Fatty Zhu from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce said resentfully, "There's still 4 more gate of heaven tests. It's too early to talk about the results now. After the palace entrance test ends, the number of Yuan Tiangong slots will definitely skyrocket. Territorial lord, please don't be complacent too early. When the time comes, you might have to pay an even bigger price." Xian Lingzi said proudly, "My grandson was able to defy the heavens and rise to such heights from a small world. Who knows how many shocking performances he has made. This time, he will definitely amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, not to mention the top 1,000. Even the top 100 is not impossible." The Azure Dome territorial lord, the Star Billow Realm Lord, Master Kun Su, young Master Tianwu by Holan, and the others, as well as young Master Tianwu and by Holan, thought back to Su Fang's various extraordinary performances from Kun Su to the Azure Dome Territory's Godchild competition and deeply agreed with Xian Lingzi's words. Whoosh, the middle-aged man from Yuan Tiangong, flew across the sky and above the peerless geniuses. The fourth gate of heaven test begins. Everyone, enter the fourth gate of heaven. Enter the fourth gate of heaven directly. What's the fourth gate of heaven test about? Why do we have to enter the gate of heaven directly? Looks like the fourth gate of heaven test is not as simple as the previous 3 gates of heaven test. Many geniuses were confused, but no one dared to question anything. They all came to the fourth gate of heaven and entered the fourth gate of heaven according to the order of their ranking. Unlike the previous 3 gates of heaven test, after entering the gate of heaven, they did not directly pass through the gate. Each genius entered an independent void space. Su Fang felt as if he had come from the real world to an illusory world. He could not help but raise his eyebrows. Is this another illusory world test? Su Fang's experience in the disillusionment execution mirror was still fresh in his memory. Not only did he overcome his inner demons and obtain great inner freedom, but he also had an unforgettable life and death love with Goddess Luo at the same time. Therefore, Su Fang was naturally very sensitive to illusory world tests. The Yuan Tiangong Palace Test. The fourth gate of heaven test is the Taoist heart test. Just as he was puzzled, the middle-aged man from Yuan Tiangong's majestic voice rang out from the void space. Su Fang thought to himself, it is indeed a Taoist heart test. I wonder what kind of method the Yuan Tiangong Taoist heart test will be. The Taoist heart test is divided into 3 stages: the heart-killing stage, the heart-enchanting stage, and the heart-enchanting stage. Your performance in these 3 stages will determine your results. Remember, the fourth gate of heaven test has a certain degree of danger. If you're not careful, you may damage your Taoist heart and affect your future cultivation. If you choose to withdraw now, it is not too late. Do you choose to withdraw? Su Fang replied, no. Withdraw? The Yuan Tiangong test was related to one's future, as well as the life and death of one's family, friends, and subordinates. How could he withdraw now? Not only Su Fang, but all the peerless geniuses who could reach this step had an incomparably tenacious Taoist heart. None of them chose to withdraw. Get ready. The first stage of the fourth gate of heaven test, the heart-killing stage. As soon as the middle-aged man from Yuan Tiangong finished speaking, the scenery in the space suddenly changed greatly. The space was no longer void, but turned into a boundless world of slaughter. Between the dusky heaven and earth, there was a strong aura of slaughter and death. As far as the eye could see, what could be seen was an endless sea of corpses and blood, emitting a pungent smell of blood and decay. Screams, cries, wails, and groans converged into a gloomy and terrifying sound wave that swept over in waves. The aura of slaughter and death, as well as the horrifying scenes and sound waves, impacted Su Fang's vision, hearing, and vital spirit consciousness. Even if he sealed his senses to the outside world, it was useless. All that appeared in his mind were the scenes he saw with his eyes and the terrifying sounds he heard with his ears. Under such strong stimulation, an innate fear surged from the bottom of Su Fang's heart, impacting Su Fang's soul. His body trembled uncontrollably. The heart-killing stage. It was to evoke the most primitive instinctive fear in one's heart to test the Taoist heart of these geniuses. If one passed the test, their Taoist heart would become stronger and they would no longer fear death. If one fell into boundless fear, the seed of fear would be left in their Taoist heart. From then on, they would be timid in their cultivation or even unable to make a single step forward. No wonder the middle-aged man reminded the geniuses of such a terrifying Taoist heart test. No matter how heaven-defying these geniuses were, they would have to face such a huge test. From the small world to the myriad worlds, I have experienced countless bloody storms and eliminated all my inner demons in the disillusionment heart-killing mirror. Now, there is still fear in my heart, which proves that my Taoist heart is not strong enough. Su Fang silently chanted the great Tao struggle in his heart. Although the fear in his heart was still there, it did not affect his consciousness. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. Looking at the boundless sea of corpses and hearing the terrifying sound, Su Fang's body trembled, but his eyes were calm. He did not try to escape or suppress the fear in his heart. Instead, he faced it calmly, using the boundless fear to impinge on his Taoist heart and temper his will. Whoosh! Su Fang flew across the sky, passing over the sea of corpses. Strands of sword chi that were filled with killing intent and blood swept past Su Fang. Although they did not cause him any actual harm, they struck the consciousness of his soul, causing his soul to tremble. His entire body spasmed as a result. However, Su Fang's eyes remained calm. No matter how great the outside world was, his heart was unmoved. After passing through the sea of corpses and enduring the terrifying impacts, he did not know how long. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. The boundless sea of corpses disappeared and turned into another scene. In a courtyard in a world of ice and snow, there were more than a dozen frozen corpses lying on the ground. One of the corpses, with a head full of white hair, was lying among the corpses. Grandfather! Su Fong felt as if his heart had been ruthlessly pierced by a cold and sharp knife. The sharp pain of his heart shattering rapidly spread throughout his body. Fear. It was not only the fear of death, but also something even more terrifying than death. Chapter 2145. Like Su Fong, all the other geniuses who participated in the Yuan Tiangong's test to enter the palace experienced the pain of Slayer's heart. Everyone had different experiences, so their reactions were also different. Facing the endless mountain of corpses and sea of blood, Di Yuan strode forward. The terrifying, murderous aura and the aura of death struck him, yet it did not slow him down in the slightest. The cries of agony did not even make him blink his eyes. Di Yuan was like an emperor who patrolled the world. The endless slaughter and death couldn't shake his mind at all. After experiencing the terror of slaughter and death, Di Yuan didn't experience the pain of Su Fong. That was because he had a firm and ruthless emperor's heart. Like the heavenly axiom, life or death couldn't shake his heart at all. Born as an imperial people who controlled the heavenly axiom of all realms, his mind was so strong. Compared to Di Yuan, Goddess Luo and Celestial Bao were more relaxed. One came from beyond the heavens, and the other was a human-shaped artifact. They had no fear or pain in their hearts. Slayer's heart's test was meaningless to them. Fan Shu's reaction to the test was different from the others. Facing the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, he exploded with a murderous aura, forcefully and domineeringly splitting the mountain of corpses and crossing the sea of blood. The whole world echoed with his arrogant and cruel laughter. Who doesn't have pain in their life? Whoever dares to make me feel pain, I'll make him suffer so much that he'll wish he was dead. Facing the painful test, Fan Shu was more direct. He exploded with his aura and directly shattered the illusion. Xuanqing calmly crossed the mountain of corpses and sea of blood with her ice-cold mind. The illusion that appeared in front of her was the scene when she was heartlessly abandoned by Yin Sunxin. There was a long silence. Yin Xinxin, your betrayal back then had indeed caused me great grief and grief. But I still have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have met Su Fong, and I wouldn't have known what true love is. Xuanqing smiled sweetly and calmly passed by. The other geniuses had different reactions. The geniuses from the ancient God Realm forces, and God Realm forces were far inferior to those from humble backgrounds. The reason couldn't be any simpler. These geniuses of noble birth had a smooth life since they were young. So when had they ever experienced fear or pain? Except for Fan Shu and a few other geniuses, most of the others were trembling in front of the mountains of corpses and the sea of blood, or were unable to extricate themselves from the pain. Su Fong looked at his dead grandfather. He had once suppressed this scene in his heart. The pain and self-blame had become his inner demon. It was only after he entered the disillusionment executioner mirror that he was able to eliminate it. Now, it appeared once again in the illusion. I, Su Fong, have experienced a lot of pain in my life. I will keep this pain with me, constantly urging and spurring me on until I reach the peak of cultivation. Su Fong's heart was stirred. He regained his calm composure and walked out of the dreamland. Then, the great pain that Su Fong had suffered before all appeared in the illusion, but it did not stop Su Fong's pace, nor did it shake his Taoist heart. After an unknown period of time, the scene in front of him changed again. What appeared in front of Su Fong was piles of gold coins, as well as pieces of divine jade, as well as a sea of divine stones, gems, elixirs, and spiritual objects. The whole world was shrouded in the power of money. Money could make ghosts turn millstones. Money could make a chaste woman fall into prostitution. Money could make father and son kill each other, and make husband and wife turn against each other. This was the power of money. It could control ghosts and gods, and its power was invincible. The golden light was intoxicating. Unknowingly, they were controlled by money and went crazy for it. This is the test of the Maze Pass. Su Fong's eyes suddenly became incomparably hale and hearty. Who didn't like money? Although the cultivator's sleeves were clean, in the face of all kinds of treasures, they would still go crazy. Birds die for food, and men die for wealth. Whether in the mortal world or the cultivation world, this was the eternal truth. Su Fong was no exception. His eyes were shining, but his deep pupils were clear, without a trace of confusion. Although money is good, how can it captivate the eyes of Su Fong? Su Fong, also like money and treasures, but I will never be controlled by money and treasures. In the eyes of Su Fong, money is just a tool. Only I can control money. So how can I be controlled by others? Su Fong revealed a domineering smile. He stepped forward step by step, shuttling through piles of gold, silver, treasures, divine jade, and all kinds of treasures. Next, Su Fong encountered all kinds of illusions, and at the same time, he also experienced all kinds of different tests. There were groups of stunning beauties, using all kinds of methods to tease and seduce Su Fong. There were also pools of wine and forests of meat that made people addicted to it. He also encountered all kinds of provocations, and even humiliation, hatred, and illusions of obtaining the supreme power of lying on a beauty's lap, waking up, and controlling the world. This was the second test of the fourth gate of heaven, the maze test. Wine, sex, wealth, and qi. Every test could make a cultivator addicted to it and lose their Tao heart. Fortunately, Su Fong had been cultivating and fighting for the great Tao. He had also completely eliminated his inner demons in the disillusionment execution mirror. Not only was his Tao heart strong, it was also clear and open-minded, unaffected by external things. Otherwise, he would have unknowingly lost himself in it, unable to extricate himself. He did not know how many illusions he had experienced, nor did he know how much time had passed. Obey my orders, and you will obtain supreme fortune. Those who disobey will die. A majestic voice came from the void. The voice was like the voice of the heavenly Tao, causing Su Fong to tremble, not daring to disobey. Swoosh! The scene in front of him suddenly changed, and Su Fong came to an illusory world. He saw that in a city, there were crazy big goblins wantonly devouring the humans in the city. Su Fong turned into a cultivator of a sect, and beside him were his fellow disciples. Their faces looked familiar, but it was hard to tell who they were. Su Fong was surprised. What test is this? Could this be the last test of the fourth gate of heaven, the slave heart test? Every test to enter the palace in Yuan Tiangong has a profound meaning. What is the purpose of this test? The majestic voice that resembled the heavenly Tao sounded again. We cultivators take on the responsibility of slaying demons and devils. Kill all these great demons and save the people. Those who make contributions will be rewarded. Those who do not back down will be punished. No matter what the test is, listen to the voice's instructions first and kill the big goblin. Although Su Fong was puzzled, the voice was right. So, he killed his way to the city with his fellow disciples and fought with the ferocious and powerful big goblin. After this battle, Su Fong killed hundreds of big goblin and made a great contribution. He was rewarded with elixirs and cultivation techniques, and was highly praised by the voice of the heavenly Tao, as well as flattered by many of his fellow disciples. The last test of the fourth gate of heaven is definitely not this simple. Su Fong was puzzled, but he could not figure out the purpose of this test. The illusory world changed again, and Su Fong and his fellow disciples faced a group of evil demon Tao cultivators. The Demon Heaven sect cultivators use infants as cultivation materials and women as embryos for cultivation. They are cruel and evil. We cultivators take on the responsibility of slaying demons and devils. Those who make contributions to the Demon Heaven sect will be rewarded. Those who do not back down will be punished. This time, Su Fong did not hesitate and took the lead to kill the demon Tao cultivators. After a bloody battle, Su Fong killed countless demon Tao cultivators. Not only did he receive great rewards, but he was also promoted to a core disciple of the sect. However, Su Fong still had doubts in his heart. Is the purpose of this test to make me completely obey and be loyal to the laws of the Yuan Tiangong? Next, again and again, he killed demons and revived experts. Su Fong made contributions again and again and received countless rewards. His status was also constantly promoted, and he became an elder of the sect. The illusory world changed again, and Su Fong brought his fellow disciples to a village. The majestic voice of the heavenly Tao sounded again. The people in the village have all been devoured by the demon race's planting technique. Regardless of gender, old or young, they're all killed, and not a single one is left alive. Su Fong used his great perfection ability to sense the village. The villagers in the village were no different from ordinary people. Seeing the hundreds of men working in the fields and the women playing at the village entrance, Su Fong could not help but hesitate, and he also had doubts about the decision of the voice of the heavenly Tao. Are you questioning my words? The cold voice of the heavenly Tao sounded. Su Fong clenched his teeth and said, "Sir, please investigate clearly. These villagers are all normal people, not demons. How can my judgment be wrong?" A divine power shrouded the village, and the buildings in the village collapsed layer by layer. The villagers, whether it was the children playing or the men working the fields, all roared and turned into ferocious and evil demons and attacked Su Fong and his fellow disciples. My great perfection ability actually made a mistake. For the first time, Su Fong's confidence in himself was shaken. After a fierce battle, all the demons were killed. This was a tragic and fierce battle. Su Fong was seriously injured, and more than half of his fellow disciples were killed or injured. Disobeying my orders has caused the sect to suffer heavy losses. Severe punishment. A divine power descended, shaking Su Fong to the point of vomiting blood, and he almost lost his life. After similar experiences again and again, Su Fong no longer had any doubts and followed the instructions of the voice of the heavenly Tao. Gradually, Su Fong seemed to be domesticated, and he no longer had his own opinions and completely obeyed the orders of the voice of the heavenly Tao. Servile heart. From the heart, he became a slave that was controlled, and he was no longer himself, but a puppet. Until one day, the voice of the heavenly Tao sounded again. The sect has been infiltrated by demon Tao cultivators and must be purged. Anyone judged to be a demon must be suppressed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As the voice of the heavenly Tao fell, a divine power appeared in front of Su Fong, carrying hundreds of shackled sect cultivators. "I am your master. How can I be a demon? I am your best friend. How can you be so cruel as to kill me? Su Fong, you are so heartless that you even want to kill your Tao companion." The demon race spies that were purged loudly defended themselves or begged Su Fong. Their faces looked a little blurry, but Su Fong felt very familiar. Chapter 2146. The cold killing intent in Su Fong's heart began to loosen. The voice of the heavenly Tao resounded in Su Fong's mind. "You dare to question my judgment?" Su Fong was like a puppet that had received an order. He activated his flying sword and was about to kill all the cultivators who were shackled. Suddenly, a strong sense of rejection suddenly surged from the depths of Su Fong's heart. This rejection was an instinctive resistance after being brainwashed and enslaved. Su Fong's heart trembled. Why did I lose my self-judgment and have to listen to the orders of that voice like a puppet? I can even mercilessly kill my family and friends? The voice of the heavenly Tao said majestically, "These people are all demon cultivators. They are evil and cruel. If you don't kill them, who knows how many people will die in their hands? Why aren't you doing it?" Two different voices appeared in Su Fong's heart. One voice came from Su Fong, who was constantly being tamed and brainwashed by the voice of the heavenly Tao. The other voice came from the real Su Fong. The two had an intense conflict, causing Su Fong to be in great pain. The cultivators in front of him sometimes turned into sinister and evil demons, and sometimes they turned into his family and friends. After struggling in pain for a long time, Su Fong closed his eyes. When he suddenly opened his eyes, There was no longer any hesitation or confusion in his eyes. He raised his head and looked at the void, saying, "You can't enslave my heart. Through missions after missions, you made me lose my self-judgment and only listen to your orders. Therefore, you made me a slave who only knows how to obey. Right or wrong, good or evil, doesn't depend on what you say. It depends on my heart. I only obey my heart. Therefore, I won't kill you." The voice of the heavenly Tao was filled with killing intent. "Go against my will, die. Even if I die, you won't be able to enslave me," Su Fong said unyieldingly. Then, he snorted disdainfully. "Besides, I've broken free from the control of the slave heart. It's equivalent to passing the test of the slave heart. Can you kill me?" Boom! The surrounding scene shattered with a bang. All the people and scenery disappeared. Looking carefully, Su Fong appeared on the square formed by the formation in front of the fifth gate of heaven. The slave heart is indeed terrifying. Thinking of the last test, Su Fong shuddered with fear. Many people were not afraid of death, but they were unknowingly shackled by numerous invisible shackles and became the slaves of others. This was even more terrifying than death. These shackles were even more terrifying than those powerful divine abilities. Let's take a very simple example. A person would be instilled with all sorts of ideas from a young age. In the school of the mortal world, the teacher would use a bamboo board to teach you what rules and boundaries were. You had to abide by the rules in everything and obediently listen to your parents and teacher. Parents would use their words and actions, even sticks, to teach their children, "What do you want? What should you do? You can't do this, and you can't do that." When you grow up, the world will tell you in various ways that you need to be rich, powerful, better than others, and just like that, humans were firmly shackled by rules that were like shackles. Moreover, they were completely unaware of it and believed that everything was right. Unknowingly, humans had become slaves who had lost their freedom. Unlike other slaves, such slaves had their hearts shackled and became a kind of slave of the heart. This was the case for mortals, and it was the same for cultivators. Therefore, not only did cultivators have to cultivate their divine bodies and yang spirits, but more importantly, they had to cultivate their hearts. The slave heart was even more terrifying than those evil divine abilities. If I hadn't been cultivating the great Tao and eliminated my inner demons in the disillusionment execution mirror, it would have been very difficult for me to pass the slave heart test. Why did the Yuan Tiangong's palace test arrange such a test? Su Fong was puzzled. Suddenly, Di Yuan's voice sounded. "I didn't expect you to pass the fourth gate of heaven's test in only 5 minutes." Only then did Su Fong realize that other than him, Di Yuan, Goddess Luo, and Tianbao had already arrived at the formation square. Goddess Luo came from beyond the heavens. The fourth gate of heaven's test was almost no difficulty for her. Tianbao was a human-shaped divine artifact. Slayer's heart, confusion, and slave heart could not affect him. He didn't expect Di Yuan to pass the fourth gate of heaven's test so easily. This made Su Fong admire this peerless genius of the ancient god world. Only 5 minutes have passed. It feels like countless years have passed. Su Fong was secretly surprised. Di Yuan nodded at Su Fong and said, "You have the right to know my name. I am Di Yuan, born of the imperial people." Su Fong replied, "You also have the right to know my name. Su Fong, a cultivator who ascended from the great world." Di Yuan raised his eyebrows and then laughed loudly. At this moment, Fan Shu was transported into the formation space by a space power. She shouted at Su Fong, "How dare you? Who do you think young Master Di Yuan is? Kneel down and answer me." Su Fong said calmly, "If you are willing to kneel, no one will stop you. I don't know how a slave like you passed a slave heart test." Fan Shu was furious. However, in this place, even if she had 10 times the courage, she would not dare to do anything. Su Fong looked at Goddess Luo. At this moment, Xuanxin also passed the test and came to the formation square. In the depths of Yuan Tiangong, peerless geniuses who enter the celestial worthy mountain will be affected by the evil will if they don't have an unchanging Taoist heart. They will be controlled by the evil god unknowingly let alone stop the changes in the world. That's right. What's the use of talent and luck when one could take on great responsibilities? Mountains of corpses and seas of blood cannot dampen one's spirit. Wealth and power cannot confuse one's heart. Various rules cannot bind one's heart. Di Yuan is very good, as expected of someone from the imperial family. Di Yuan and Su Fong are both good seedlings. If they are carefully cultivated, the plan to enter the celestial worthy mountain may fall on them. Su Fong? This boy's talent is too poor. It's impossible for him to enter the celestial worthy mountain. Many venerable sovereigns were discussing and praising Su Fong and Di Yuan. However, there were also people who questioned Su Fong's talent. Of course, it was the venerable sovereign of Sanskrit. As for Goddess Luo and Tian Bao, for some reason, many venerable sovereigns turned a blind eye to them. It was as if they did not exist in their eyes. The test of the fourth gate of heaven can end now. After all, these geniuses are the future experts of the myriad worlds. If their Tao heart is damaged during the test, it will affect their future cultivation. It will be a loss to the myriad worlds. The other venerable sovereigns agreed. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. All the geniuses came out of the illusory realm and were sent to the square. Some of these geniuses were still struggling in the first test, the killer's heart gate. Some were addicted to wine, women, wealth, and temper. Most of them were trapped in the slay's heart gate. If the venerable sovereigns had not ended the test of the fourth gate of heaven, they might have been trapped in the illusory realm alive. According to the performance of the geniuses in the illusory realm, only the venerable sovereigns gave different results. The rankings on the gold roll above the illusory palace changed again. This time, Di Yuan finally surpassed Goddess Luo and jumped to first place. Goddess Luo was in second place, followed by Tian Bao and Xuanxin. Su Fong suddenly rose to more than 100 places. This was mainly because in the test of the fourth gate of heaven, half of his score was cut in the second test. The gap between him and the other geniuses was too big. Although his performance in the fourth gate of heaven was impressive and his ranking rose sharply, it was not as eye-catching as the top 10 geniuses. However, Su Fong's sudden increase in strength made the Blue Sky Territory Lord, Xian Lingzi, and the others overjoyed. The smile on the face of Fatty Zhu from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce completely disappeared. Since Xuanxin was in fourth place, the Divine Phoenix ancient clan experts were naturally overjoyed. However, Su Fong had become a thorn in their hearts. Don't let him enter the top 100. If he does, even the Divine Phoenix ancient clan will not be able to do anything to him. Feng Mingtian stared at the rankings on the gold roll and kept cursing in his heart. If Su Fong could enter the top 100, it meant that after entering the Yuan Tiangong, he would be arranged to live in the Earth realm. With this status, no matter how powerful the Divine Phoenix ancient clan was, they would not be able to touch Su Fong. The middle-aged man in the Yuan Tiangong appeared in front of the fifth gate of heaven. Everyone knew that a more severe test was about to begin. The test of the fifth gate of heaven is to create the Dharma. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, all the geniuses were stunned. Creation of a law? Only those who have surpassed the ultimate God realm and comprehended the heavenly Tao law to the extreme will have the ability to continuously create and evolve the law on the basis of the Great Path's essence. The test of the fifth gate of heaven is about the creation of the law. How many people can pass? The geniuses discussed animatedly. These geniuses were all gifted, especially those who came from the ancient divine world forces, and divine clans. Not only were their cultivation talents amazing, but they also did not lack various precious resources. However, these geniuses had limited cultivation time after all. To comprehend the Great Path, they needed endless years of accumulation. Among these geniuses, those who were able to reach the ultimate God realm were already considered outstanding. There were not many medium ultimate gods like Su Fong, and even fewer upper ultimate gods. They were far from reaching the ultimate God realm. The test of the Yuan Tiangong entering the palace was about the creation of the law. Wasn't this too difficult? Among the geniuses, except for Di Yuan and a few others who did not change their expressions, the others frowned and looked troubled. Creation of a law? Interesting. Su Fong raised his eyebrows, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. At this time, he had already mastered the essence of 6 great paths and had integrated them. It could be said that his understanding of the Great Path was unparalleled in the ultimate God realm. However, Su Fong had never tried to create the law on the basis of the Great Path's essence. However, the yin-yang transformation contained the infinite mysteries of the heavenly Tao's evolution. Although it was difficult to create the law, it was not difficult for Su Fong. It's only interesting if it's difficult. Chapter 2147. Of course, I won't let you create nomological laws out of thin air. With your current cultivation, it's too much to ask you to create nomological laws out of thin air. Next, I'll bring you to a place where you can obtain supreme fortune. The middle-aged man from Yuan Tiangong waved his hand, and a distorted divine power appeared in the square space formed by the array. It enveloped more than 10,000 geniuses and sent them directly into the inner space of the 5th gate of heaven. Time and space twisted and changed. Even with Su Fong's cultivation, he felt dizzy. The blood in his body surged, and his primordial spirit was in a daze. His head and divine body felt like it was exploding. Where have I been sent to? Su Fong closed his eyes and recovered from the discomfort brought about by the teleportation. When he opened his eyes, the scene in front of him was no longer the real world, but it wasn't an illusion either. Many geniuses had been teleported to a vast and boundless beach. They were all lying around and hadn't recovered from the discomfort caused by the teleportation. Some of the weaker cultivators even fainted on the beach. At that moment, only Di Yuan, Goddess Luo, Tianbao, and Su Fong were able to remain clear-headed. Xuanxin and more than a dozen exceptional geniuses from the ancient god world had also regained consciousness. However, their faces were pale, and they weren't as calm as Di Yuan, Su Fong, and the others. "You're not bad." A majestic voice entered his ears. It turned out to be Uni Dao Di Zun, who had appeared at the beginning of the entrance test. He had arrived at some point and was standing in front with his hands behind his back. He looked at Su Fong with approval. Su Fong smiled embarrassedly and sat down cross-legged. As he recovered, he used his great perfection ability to sense his surroundings. Su Fong was shocked to find that this beach wasn't an ordinary beach. Every grain of sand wasn't material. They were formed by the natural spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and they contained the great Tao law. Every grain of sand contained a great Tao law, forming an endless beach. How many great Tao laws did it contain? If one cultivated on the beach and comprehended the great Tao, it would be more than 10 times faster than the outside world. This beach seemed to be formed naturally, but Su Fong carefully sensed that it was man-made. What kind of amazing divine ability was needed to create this beach? The Su Fong also appeared, and the surrounding heavenly Tao laws became incomparably clear. It was very easy to communicate with the heavenly Tao, and the power of the divine ability was naturally multiplied. Su Fong was extremely shocked. At the same time, he was also guessing the purpose of only Tao Emperor bringing these geniuses here. Su Fong also found that in front of the beach, there was an endless sea, but he couldn't hear the sound of waves. Because the distance was too far, and his perception was limited here, he couldn't see what was in the sea. However, he could conclude that this sea was definitely not simple. About 3 days later, many geniuses recovered one after another. This emperor will now announce the rules of the 5th gate of heaven. Only Tao Emperor said indifferently. Under the supreme majesty of an Emperor Realm Master, all the geniuses trembled and held their breaths. Only Tao Emperor explained. The place you are currently in is a cultivation holy land created by the combined efforts of Emperor Realm Masters in Yuan Tiangong, called the Primal Chaos Sea. Chaos Sea? Su Fong looked at the sea in the distance, and a glint flashed in his deep eyes. So this sea was called the Primal Chaos Sea. Since it was related to the word primal chaos, it was definitely extraordinary. The primal chaos sea is located in the deepest part of Yuan Tiangong. The top 10 geniuses who entered the palace this time will have a chance to cultivate here. As for the other Earth Realm, Mysterious Realm, and Huang Realm geniuses, if they accumulate enough points, they will also have a chance. Only Dao Emperor continued his introduction. Let's go take a look at the primal chaos sea first, then I'll tell you the rules of the fifth gate of heaven. Only Dao Emperor waved his sleeve, and the geniuses uncontrollably flew up from the beach, following only Dao Emperor to a mountain peak by the sea. A vast and endless sea appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This sea was not only boundless, it was also incomparably vast. The dark sea water was unfathomable, and it gave people the feeling that it contained everything in the world. The sea surface was abnormally calm, but it did not give off the feeling of death. Instead, it gave the geniuses a strange feeling of majesty and surging. It was extremely quiet and, at the same time, extremely moving. Gusts of sea breeze blew over, causing everyone's minds to become incomparably clear. The ethereal heavenly Tao became incomparably clear and real at this moment, as if it could be touched by just reaching out. Occasionally, waves would sweep over, causing waves to crash onto the reefs and beaches. Everyone was shocked to find that every wave was not water, but condensed from the heavenly Tao. When the waves landed on the reefs and beaches, they immediately turned into sand that contained the heavenly Tao. Only then did the geniuses understand where the strange beach came from. The geniuses all became excited, and their eyes lit up as they looked at the sea. Even Di Yuan and Goddess Luo's eyes became incomparably bright. Fortune. It was indeed a great fortune. Cultivating here was a great fortune that could not be found in the outside world. The Chaos Sea was created by venerable sovereigns using their supreme abilities to imitate the origin of the universe. It can allow you to comprehend the heavenly Tao most clearly and directly. The content of the fifth gate of heaven's test is to observe the Chaos Sea and create laws according to your own comprehension, causing the Chaos Sea to resonate. In the end, your test results will be calculated based on the size of the waves that appear in the Chaos Sea. Only Dao Di Yuan's words made the geniuses eager to give it a try. Only Dao Di Yuan looked at Di Yuan and continued. After the Chaos Sea was created, some region lords and overgods were found to test it. Di Xuan, who came from the supreme imperial people, caused the Chaos Sea to resonate with the laws he created, causing waves of 9,500 feet. He left behind a record that even overgods could not break. Di Xuan, the record he set is actually difficult for even overgods to break. This person's strength is actually so heaven-defying. Everyone discussed spiritedly as they looked at Di Yuan. Di Yuan said calmly, Di Xuan is the number one peerless figure of the previous generation of my clan. In the future, he will be in charge of my clan. At the same time, he is also the wielder of the heavenly Tao in the myriad worlds. His ability to comprehend the heaven Tao is unparalleled in the myriad of worlds, so creating such a record isn't something that's world-shocking. It's a pity that Di Xuan's cultivation time has exceeded the limit. Otherwise, only Dao Di Yuan said in a regretful tone. Then, he looked at Di Yuan and said, the Chaos Sea test has nothing to do with cultivation. The comprehension of the heavenly Tao is the key. Among you geniuses, it's not impossible to break Di Xuan's record. Only Dao Di Yuan clearly thought highly of Di Yuan. Among the tens of thousands of geniuses, only Di Yuan had some possibility. Di Yuan said humbly, I'm not willing to have extravagant hopes of breaking Di Xuan's record. I'll be satisfied if I can cause the Chaos Sea to resonate and raise waves of 9,000 feet. The other geniuses were also eager to give it a try. They looked impatient. Don't think that this test is easy. More than half of you have created laws that can cause the Chaos Sea to resonate. It's very difficult to raise a 1-foot wave. It's very possible that you can't even raise a 1-foot wave. Only Dao Di Yuan smiled faintly. Immediately, Only Dao Di Yuan's tone became cold. If you can't even raise a 1-foot wave, how can you be considered a peerless genius? You don't even have the qualifications to enter Yuan Tiangong. Therefore, those who are unable to raise a 1-foot wave due to insufficient comprehension will be directly eliminated. Many geniuses immediately became nervous. You have a total of 1,000 years to comprehend the Chaos Sea. How much you can gain will depend on your own strength. After 1,000 years, the test will be held here. Go find a place to comprehend it. Let me remind you, the effect will naturally be different if the location of the comprehension is different. Comprehending on the beach is far from comparable to those reefs on the sea. Moreover, the more turbulent the reefs are, the better the effect of the comprehension. The reefs on the sea are limited. If you want to occupy the best one, you have to fight for it with your own strength. Only Dao Di Yuan's words stunned many geniuses. Didn't this mean that they could fight on the Chaos Sea? The geniuses unleashed a strong battle intent as their eyes were filled with determination. Remember, you can't injure others or kill them. Everything else is within the scope of the rules. Begin. Only Dao Di Yuan's voice fell. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More than 10,000 geniuses flew towards the reefs on the sea. Su Fong looked at the endless chaos sea with a trace of hesitation in his eyes. In the end, he still left the mountain peak. With this hesitation, he fell behind everyone. Boom, boom. In order to fight for a good place to comprehend, many geniuses began to fight on the Chaos Sea. Comprehending the Chaos Sea not only affected the results of the palace test, but also had shocking benefits for one's future cultivation. Occupying a good reef was equivalent to having the initiative and advantage. In order to fight for the fortune, these geniuses were even willing to risk their lives. Fortunately, the rules restricted them from seriously injuring or killing their opponents. Otherwise, who knew how many geniuses would die? Lowly slaves? You think you're worthy of occupying a reef? Get lost. Sun Chi had just defeated a genius and occupied a good reef when a red-haired youth from the ancient god clan of the divine world shouted in a domineering manner. This red-haired youth's cultivation was extraordinary. He had reached the third sky of the ultimate god realm. On the other hand, Sun Chi had just reached the ultimate god realm. The difference in strength between the two was not small. Sun Chi gritted his teeth and gave up the reef. He knew that his strength was not as good as his opponent's. If he were to get injured in the fight for the reef, even if he was restricted by the rules, the venerable red youth wouldn't dare to injure him. Even if he were to be lightly injured, it would still greatly affect his comprehension. He could only suppress his anger and give up the reef. This reef is mine. Chapter 2148. This red youth came from a powerful and ancient god clan. Although his clan was not as powerful as the ancient god clan, it was still one of the top 100 in the god realm, far surpassing the G people and the Sanskrit of the Brahma god realm. Now that Su Fong had snatched the reef, the red youth was both shocked and angry. You dare to attack me? I come from, Su Fong said coldly. Your identity is useless in the Yuan Tiangong. Since you can snatch others, you should be prepared to be snatched by others. Scram. Lowly ant, just you wait. Once the entrance test is over, I will teach you a lesson. The red youth had no choice but to leave with a few harsh words. Thank you, Brother Su, for helping me vent my anger. Sun Chi cupped his fist towards Su Fong and thanked him. Then, he prepared to look for another reef. However, Su Fong stopped him. This place belongs to you. You don't have to look elsewhere. After saying that, Su Fong flew into the sky and left. Looking at Su Fong's figure, Sun Chi's eyes were filled with gratitude. Su Fong used his power to search for Xuanxin among the many geniuses. Imbuji, you are courting death. Seeing this, Su Fong's eyes turned sharp. As it turned out, Xuanxin had occupied a reef with an area of 30 meters. It was a pretty good location. Because of Xuanxin's peerless beauty and her origin from the ancient god clan, even some of the peerless geniuses of the ancient god realm did not fight with her. Unexpectedly, a figure landed on the reef. It was Imbuji. If you want this reef, take it, Xuanxin said coldly and was about to leave the reef. Wait. Buji smiled ambiguously and stopped Xian Xin. Xuanxin's eyes were cold. What do you want? Buji said. I'm Buji from the Supreme clan. I've always admired junior sister Huang. Since we're fated to meet in the Chaos Sea, why don't we comprehend on this reef together? I already have a Tao companion, Xian Xin said coldly, as if she was trying to keep people 1,000 miles away. Buji snorted disdainfully. I know that your Tao companion is Su Fong. I can guarantee that he won't be able to pass the Yuan Tiangong entrance test this time. Once the test is over, he will be mercilessly suppressed. You can now choose a new Tao companion. If you're interested, I won't look down on your past. In a split second, Xuanxin's eyes looked as if they had been frozen. Not only will Su Fong pass the entrance test, he will also soar to the sky and enter the Yuan Tiangong heavenly realm. As for you, did anyone tell you that you're disgusting? Get out of my way. Buji was instantly enraged. He unleashed his Yang divine power and charged toward Xuanxin. Xuanxin's heroic spirit was fully displayed. He unleashed his ice elemental divine power and clashed with Buji. Buji, you're courting death. At this moment, Su Fong unleashed his flaming cloud wings and flew across the sky. He used his flaming cloud steps and charged towards Buji. Su Fong unleashed a huge amount of illusory flaming clouds, which transformed into the formless flaming cloud saber. Huge amounts of Tao radiance and flames filled the sky as they attacked Buji. Within the Chaos Sea, not only could one clearly communicate and sense the heavenly Tao, the power of one's divine power was also astonishing. It was more than 10 times stronger than usual. Buji unleashed all his strength and unleashed his defense. He finally managed to neutralize Su Fong's formless flaming cloud saber. Su Fong, I was waiting for you. I didn't expect you to walk right into my trap. You're courting death. Buji's deep eyes revealed a smug and sinister expression. Young Master Wentian and more than 10 prodigies from the god's race surrounded Su Fong. Su Fong, hurry up and leave. This is their scheme. Xuanxin also saw through Buji's sinister intentions and shouted at Su Fong Da. Buji obviously wanted to use Xuanxin as bait to lure Su Fong over. Then, they would work together to injure Su Fong. Of course, he didn't dare to disregard the Supreme Emperor's orders. He only needed to injure or kill Su Fong. As long as it affected Su Fong's test of the 5th gate of heaven, he would have achieved his goal. Do you think you can escape? Buji said darkly. 2 rays of Xian Guang shot out from his eyes. The yin and yang divine power of the alternation of day and night, as well as the alternation of cold and heat, bombarded Su Fong. In order to not violate the rules, Buji was very careful with his attacks. He only used less than 50% of his strength. He only needed to injure Su Fong. Xuanxin executed her divine power and wanted to help Su Fong. However, young Master Wentian and the others stopped her. Boom! Su Fong was struck by Buji's divine power. His body was sent flying for tens of miles. His mortal body was shattered layer by layer. The divine body below his abdomen was shattered and turned into a mist of blood. At this moment, Su Fong was only left with his upper body. With the strong divine body of a god, although it wasn't fatal, it was still a severe injury. Su Fong, Xuanxin exclaimed loudly. She pushed young Master Wentian and the others back. In a flash, she appeared in front of Su Fong and hugged Su Fong tightly. Buji was also shocked and astonished. I haven't even used half of my strength. How did Su Fong become so weak all of a sudden? Could it be because of the heavenly Tao laws around the Chaos Sea? You have openly violated my orders and looked down on me. Your qualifications to enter the palace are revoked. Scram! The Supreme Emperor's majestic voice resounded. Immediately after, a divine power condensed into a palm. Like an eagle catching a chicken, it shackled Buji and sent him out of the Chaos Sea. Young Master Wentian and the others were all trembling. You all joined hands with Buji and schemed against other geniuses. You all will not be able to escape punishment. The Supreme Emperor's voice resounded again. A terrifying divine power descended like the heavenly Tao. Young Master Wentian and the others felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. At the same time, they vomited blood and their auras immediately withered. If there are any more violators, I won't let them off easily. The Supreme Emperor sneered. The divine power that enveloped young Master Wentian and the others immediately disappeared. Although they weren't directly disqualified by Lone Dao Emperor like Buji, these geniuses were all heavily injured and scared half to death. They would definitely be greatly affected by comprehending the Chaos Sea, which would directly affect their test results. How can this Su Fong be so weak? Young Master Wentian looked at Su Fong with lingering fear. After Su Fong formed a seal, the blood chi from his shattered body quickly gathered at the wound. Then, at a speed visible to the naked eye, it quickly recovered to its normal state. Young Master Wentian and the other geniuses suddenly realized that they and Buji were all tricked by Su Fong. Puff! Young Master Wentian couldn't help but vomit blood again. Xuanqin was also stunned. Then, he couldn't help but laugh. Su Fong, I didn't expect you to become so evil after not seeing you for so long. Su Fong laughed. I couldn't help but want to vomit when fighting with that monster, but I was worried that I would accidentally injure or kill him, so I used a little trick. The Golden Rainbow Monarch spoke from the depths of his body. Kid, I didn't expect you to be so sinister. Even I have to look at you in a new light. Golden Rainbow Monarch, you're the king of traps. Compared to you, I'm still too far away. Likewise, if you don't become my disciple, it would be a waste of your talent. Why don't you consider my previous suggestion? Take out all your treasures first. Maybe I'll consider it seriously. Then I'll think about it. The Golden Rainbow Monarch stopped talking at the mention of the Golden Rainbow Monarch's treasures. Su Fong shouted domineeringly at young Master Wentian and the others. Why aren't you scramming? Do you want me to ask you to leave? Young Master Wentian and the other geniuses gritted their teeth, but they had no choice but to leave the reef. How could they not leave? If they accidentally fell into Su Fong's trap, like Buji, they would be completely finished. Letting Xuanqin stay on the reef to cultivate, Su Fong soared into the sky. He flew to the highest point of the Chaos Sea before stopping. Standing in the sky, Su Fong had a panoramic view of the entire Chaos Sea. He revealed a domineering smile. The Chaos Sea was vast and deep. It contained countless grand Tao laws. Other geniuses could only comprehend from the occasional splashes of the Chaos Sea and create their own laws. Su Fong wasn't trying to comprehend a single wave, nor was he trying to comprehend a sea. Instead, he was trying to comprehend the entire Chaos Sea as a whole. Su Fong's actions caused Xian Xin to be astonished. However, a proud expression appeared on her face as she said, "How can my Tao companion be the same as an ordinary person?" The test of the fifth gate of heaven will definitely be his chance to amaze the world. What is Su Fong trying to do? He's flying so high. How can he comprehend? Maybe he knows that his comprehension ability isn't enough. He can't comprehend anything, so he's planning to give up? I think he's just trying to please the crowd and attract the attention of the only Tao sovereign. Everyone was surprised. Then they mocked and ridiculed. Di Yuan flew all the way to the depths of the Chaos Sea. He found an island with an area of 100 miles. Then he sat cross-legged on a cliff. Raising his head to look at Su Fong in the sky, Di Yuan smiled casually. In order to gain the attention of the one Tao sovereign, you made such a claptrap to please the crowd. It is truly laughable. I have overestimated you before. Plop. What was even more shocking than Su Fong was Celestial Bao. He actually jumped into the Chaos Sea and quickly sank to the bottom of the sea. Everyone was shocked. One had to know that the Chaos Sea wasn't a real sea. It was an ocean created by the Sovereign's supreme divine ability, imitating the origin of the universe. It was an ocean condensed from countless laws, and it contained a terrifying power of laws. Jumping into the Chaos Sea would allow one to clearly sense and comprehend the heavenly Tao laws. However, how powerful would one's divine body be? After a long time, nothing happened to Celestial Bao. Some people reacted and imitated celestial bow. However, no one dared to jump into the chaos sea directly. Instead, they reached into the sea with their hands. Who knew chi? Chi. Chi. The terrifying power of laws corroded the hands of these geniuses that reached into the sea, turning them into nothingness in an instant. What was even more terrifying was that the corroded hands couldn't be recovered with blood. None of the geniuses dared to try again. They all cursed Celestial Bow for being crazy. Chapter 2149. What kind of monster is that? Where did he come from? He actually has such a powerful divine body. Many geniuses were shocked by Celestial Treasure's terrifying performance. Even Di Yuan raised his eyebrows when he saw the heavenly treasure sinking into the chaos sea from afar. His eyes under his eyebrows were filled with surprise. Only Tao Emperor's voice rang out. If you don't have the divine body of an area lord, you'll definitely die if you enter the chaos sea. That genius is extremely talented, and his divine body is so powerful that none of you can compare to it. If you don't want to die, don't try again. The divine body of an area lord? The geniuses all gasped. They didn't dare to touch a drop of seawater anymore. About half a month later, more than 10,000 geniuses finally settled into the state of comprehending the chaos sea. Only a few people managed to get a reef and were able to comprehend the chaos sea more clearly. Those geniuses who didn't manage to get a reef could only return to the beach. Only Su Fong and Celestial Treasure were exceptions. One was in the sky, and the other was in the sea. The seemingly calm sea of chaos actually contained boundless profundities of the heaven Tao. Even though they were able to directly observe and comprehend it at the sea of chaos. With the current cultivations of these geniuses, they were only able to capture a trace of a clue when the waves surged and the laws of the heaven Tao appeared for a brief moment, and they were unable to directly sense the calm sea of laws. Although that was the case, comprehending the chaos sea was also a rare opportunity in his life. On an island deep in the chaos sea, Di Yuan revealed a domineering smile. I, Di Yuan, will definitely surpass my race's Di Xuan in the future and control the heavenly Tao of thousands of worlds. I don't need to comprehend the waves of the chaos sea. Instead, I need to comprehend the waves. An extremely domineering, sensing force swept the surging waves around the island into the range of his senses. The peerless genius of the imperial people was just so domineering. Compared to Di Yuan, the mysterious goddess Luo was extremely low-key. Goddess Luo didn't occupy a reef or an island. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the beach and stared at the sea. Her eyes were deep and vast. They didn't reflect the sea, but the strange scene of countless heavenly Tao laws operating and evolving. Goddess Luo had actually used the world in her body to miraculously replicate the entire chaos sea. She had absorbed the true essence of the heavenly Tao laws and turned them into her own. Heavenly Bao sat cross-legged a few dozen feet deep in the chaos sea. He allowed the power of the laws to surge at him from all directions. His divine body cracked under the pressure, but he did not move at all. Moreover, by relying on the pressure and shackles of the power of laws, he was able to sense the heavenly Tao more directly and clearly. So his gains were naturally much greater than other geniuses. High in the sky, Su Fong sat cross-legged in the air and used his perfected pupil power with all his might. At the same time, he used the heavenly divination divine ability, the heavenly divination eye, to sense and comprehend the entire chaos sea. He was different from the other geniuses. It was like practicing calligraphy. The most basic strokes were nothing more than horizontal strokes, vertical strokes, and so on. However, it was just a simple horizontal stroke and vertical stroke, but it formed countless characters, and each character could be written with countless different kinds of charm. The other geniuses were still learning the horizontal strokes and vertical strokes before beginning to form characters. Su Fong had grasped the essence of the six great Tao and had fused them together. Just like calligraphy, he had long broken away from the practice of horizontal strokes and vertical strokes. He had begun to study the composition, layout, and even the charm of the characters. In addition, after Su Fong reached the seventh transformation, the world in his body had undergone a tremendous change. It had turned from a world that had just been created into a universe that had evolved endlessly. The chaos sea was like a condensed and materialized universe. Therefore, Su Fong did not need to comprehend every drop of seawater. Instead, it was the entire chaos sea, the entire universe, and the overall movement of the chaos sea. It was not a single wave or a change in a single wave. As Su Fong comprehended it, he verified it with his supreme divine ability, the yin-yang change. This caused his understanding of the yin-yang change to deepen bit by bit. The world in his body was also quietly changing. To Su Fong, the fifth gate of heaven test was also a great opportunity. It was also an opportunity, but Su Fong's height allowed him to obtain an opportunity that was 100 times or even 10,000 times more than other geniuses. Outside of Primordius' heavenly palace, in the void around a massive palace phantom, Buji, who had his qualifications to take the test revoked by Emperor Sol Dao and was kicked out of the Chaos Sea, finally understood what had happened. He clenched his jaws at Su Fong. The Yin clan was one of the top 100 ancient divine clans in the myriad of worlds. Although they did not have a venerable emperor, they had a peerless powerhouse who was infinitely close to the venerable emperor. Moreover, there were many more powerhouses below the venerable emperor in the clan. The G people could not compare to them. With Buji's talent and strength, entering the top 1,000 should have been a sure thing. He might even have made it into the top 100. Now that Buji had been disqualified, it meant that the Yin clan would lose a lot of spots to enter the Yuan Tiangong. At the same time, it also meant that the Yin clan would lose a peerless powerhouse in the future. How could the Yin clan's upper echelons let it go? Naturally, they did not dare to blame Uni Dao Dizun. Instead, they shifted all their anger to Su Fong. Lowly ant, how dare he provoke our supreme Yin clan again and again? We cannot let him go just like that. After the fourth gate of heaven, he will only be ranked around 500. His final result will definitely not make it into the top 100. At most, he will enter the profound realm of the Yuan Tiangong. It is nothing. Even if we suppress him, it will not cause much trouble. The upper echelons of the Yin clan were all furious. They were determined to kill Su Fong. Whoosh! A middle-aged man with a big head walked out of the void. Ancestor! The upper echelons of the Yin clan all came forward to greet him. It turned out that this somewhat comical middle-aged man with a big head was the peerless powerhouse of the Yin clan, whose strength was infinitely close to the venerable emperor. This ancestor has already discussed with the other venerable emperors. The other venerable emperors have agreed to let Buji continue to participate in the sixth gate of heaven after the fifth gate of heaven test. The words of the Yin clan's ancestor surprised the upper echelons of the Yin clan and Buji. The Yin clan was so powerful that they could actually make the other venerable emperors change the decision of Uni Dao Dizun. The Yin clan's ancestor looked at Buji and said coldly, "Do you know how much our clan has paid to let you return to the palace for the test? If anything goes wrong again, you should know what kind of consequences you will have to bear." Buji's entire body was frozen. He quickly lowered his head and knelt down. This disciple will definitely do his best. His yin-yang eyes were filled with resentment. His heart was filled with resentment. Su Fong, during the sixth gate of heaven test, I will definitely make you and your partner suffer a fate worse than death. In the chaotic sea world, time flew. In the blink of an eye, nearly 1,000 years had passed. High up in the sky, Su Fong's eyes were bloodshot. His face was filled with exhaustion, but his eyes were still shining brightly. In his inner world, boom, 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 heaven and earth were undergoing violent changes. The boundless sky became even more profound and vast. Numerous material continents and embryonic stars were taking shape at a rapid rate. The power of yin and yang, the power of the world, and the 6 natural powers of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and lightning clashed even more fiercely. The great Tao laws were constantly evolving and merging in the collision. All kinds of natural scenes, such as wind, rain, thunder, lightning, and all kinds of other scenes flashed continuously, causing the energy and matter of heaven and earth to appear with the aura of life. Observing the chaotic sea made Su Fang's understanding of the yin-yang transformation deeper and deeper, causing a drastic change in his inner world. When he looked at the chaotic sea again, it was no longer so mysterious and vast. Su Fang felt like he had everything under control. The observation is over. Uni Dao Di Zun's voice sounded again and again. At first, it was like a soft whisper, but in the end, it was like a thunderclap. Many geniuses woke up from their observation state. 1,000 years have passed so quickly. Give me another 1,000 years, no, even if it's 100 years, I will definitely break through a major realm. It's only been 1,000 years. If I had 100,000 years or 1,000,000 years, that would be even better. Unfortunately, only 10 geniuses can cultivate in the Yuan Tiangong heavenly realm. After this time, there won't be another chance like this. The geniuses had unsatisfied expressions as they reluctantly woke up from their observation state. All of you come here. Let this king see what you've gained in the past 1,000 years. Uni Dao Di Zun's voice came from the depths of the chaotic sea. Boom! The calm chaotic sea suddenly started to spin, forming a giant whirlpool. At the bottom of the whirlpool, there was a 10,000-foot wide array space. Uni Dao Di Zun stood with his hands behind his back. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The aura of a world enveloped all the geniuses and pulled them into the array space within the whirlpool. The sea water roiled and quickly returned to its original state. Su Fang took a closer look and saw that there was an altar in the center of the formation space. It was most likely used for testing. Su Fang, how are your gains? Xuanqin transmitted her voice to Su Fang through her primordial spirit. I've gained a lot. Su Fang nodded in response. Xuanqin, what about you? An unprecedented gain. If I can enter the top 10 in the end, I'll have the opportunity to cultivate in the chaotic sea often in the future. That's even better. Xuanqin was also pleasantly surprised. Given her personality, it was obvious that her gains this time were extraordinarily bountiful. Su Fang smiled faintly. He had also thought of entering the Yuan Tiangong heavenly realm at the same time as Xuanqin, but the possibility of this was not high. It wasn't that Su Fang wasn't confident enough. In the previous 5 heavenly gates, other than Su Fang's innate talent, he had taken advantage of everything else. There were still 2 more gates, and there might not be such an easy thing. Looking at the other geniuses, some looked confident, while others looked extremely nervous. Di Yuan still looked as heavy as a mountain, and an aura that felt as if the world was in his control rose spontaneously. Celestial Treasure's eyes were filled with ambition. It was obvious that he had gained a lot and planned to amaze the world with a single feat. Goddess Luo was still so mysterious. No one could see through her. Seeing that Su Fang's gaze was fixed on Goddess Luo, Xuanqin suddenly transmitted her primordial spirit voice. I wonder if this mysterious Goddess Luo is more beautiful than me. Chapter 2150. Just as Su Fang didn't know what to say, only Dao Emperor spoke up at the right time. Next, it's time to show the results of your 1,000 years of observation. The order of the test will be randomly selected by this king. Only Dao Emperor reached out and grabbed a golden Xinguang from the void. After a flash, it condensed into a person's name. First, Wenyan Xin. Following only Dao Emperor's voice, young Master Wentian walked out from the crowd. His name was indeed Wenyan Xin. Because it sounded like a woman's name, he liked others to call him Young Master Wentian. Being the first to be chosen by only Dao Emperor, young Master Wentian was very happy. If he performed well in the first test, he would naturally leave a deep impression on only Dao Emperor, which would greatly benefit him when he entered Yuan Tiangong in the future. It was said that after entering Yuan Tiangong, not only would the Yuan Tiangong masters personally guide the geniuses in their cultivation, they would even accept any good seedlings as their personal disciples. If one was accepted as a personal disciple by an emperor master, it would truly be called soaring to the heavens. Their future achievements would be immeasurable. Young Master Wen cupped his fist towards only Tao Emperor and bowed. Disciple Wen Yunxin, after 1,000 years of observation, has made some progress. Please give me some pointers. Unidao Emperor nodded and said, Go, enter the spell altar and inject your arcane energy into it. You will be able to fuse with the entire Chaos Sea through the spell formation and use the Chaos Sea's fundamental laws to evolve and create your own Grand Tao laws. Only Tao Emperor then warned, Remember, you cannot use any of your previous divine abilities in the altar. You can only create your own divine abilities by evolving the primal Chaos Sea's source laws. Only then will you be able to resonate with the primal Chaos Sea. Many thanks for Sir Emperor's reminder. Young Master Wen cupped his fist towards only Tao Emperor and thanked him. Then he slowly flew toward the altar and sat down cross-legged. Only Tao Emperor waved his sleeve, and a Tianzhong widescreen of light appeared in front of him. The scene displayed on the screen was the entire primal Chaos Sea. When the geniuses saw it, they immediately felt a vast sea of Grand Tao laws rushing towards them. Only Tao Emperor said, Through this Emperor's divine ability, I can clearly see the achievements of each participant and let you all know the difference between you and them. Wen Yunxin, you may begin. Young Master Wen released his magic power and infused it into the array formation. In an instant, Sir Wen felt as if he had become one with the entire Chaos Sea. His body transformed into a boundless sea of laws. The various heavenly Daos in the Chaos Sea were like a piece of white paper, allowing him to freely draw on them. Within young Master Wen divine aperture, the sea of magic power was boiling and roaring. In the depths of his mind, he was also constantly deducing. Days passed. Roughly 10 days later, young Master Wen suddenly burst out laughing, his hands forming a seal. Great Tao of water, illusory, cloud world. Young Master Wen snorted in a domineering manner. A shocking fog started to spread out in the surroundings, and an ethereal aura of the Grand Tao started to envelop the altar. With the help of the array formation, the divine might was released towards the Chaos Sea. In an instant, the Chaos Sea, which was originally calm like an ancient well, was triggered by some great Tao laws. They arranged themselves in a strange way and finally caused the seawater to resonate. From the light screen in front of him, he could see a spiral column of water rising from the sea. It rose to a height of more than 1,300 feet and finally turned into waves that surged in all directions. More than 1,300 feet. Young Master Wen can be considered a famous genius in the myriad worlds. He created a divine ability with his own laws, but he only managed to raise a 1,000-foot wave. Many geniuses discussed. Some exclaimed in surprise, while others were disdainful. Young Master Wen expression was a bit stiff. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with this result. Su Fong thought to himself, Dixuan's record is more than 900 feet, but young Master Wen only raised a 1,000-foot wave. He's still far from the record. However, according to Only Tao Emperor, this result should be quite good. Only Tao Emperor's eyes swept across the crowd, and all the geniuses fell silent. To be able to comprehend the Chaos Sea, create a divine ability with his own laws, and raise a 1,320-foot wave within 1,000 years, such an achievement is already outstanding. You guys dare to mock him? Only Tao Emperor's words made those geniuses who were mocking young Master Wen speechless. Young Master Wen also revealed a joyful expression. Since only Tao Emperor said so, this result was obviously quite good. More importantly, this performance had successfully attracted the attention of only Tao Emperor, which could be considered as achieving his goal. Next, Mo Changqian. Only Tao Emperor once again grabbed a Xianguang and condensed it into a person's name. Sure enough, as only Tao Emperor had said, although the next genius, named Mo Changqian, had successfully resonated with the Chaos Sea with his own laws, the wave he raised was only about 200 feet tall. The prodigy after Mo Changqian performed even worse. He only caused a 3-foot-tall wave to rise in the chaos sea, barely exceeding the bottom line. This made the prodigy feel extremely ashamed and wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. The test proceeded in an orderly manner. Apart from the occasional genius surpassing 300 feet, there weren't any other outstanding geniuses. There were more than 10,000 geniuses participating in the test, and each of them took more than 10 days. The entire test of the fifth gate of heaven was a very long process. Many geniuses sat down cross-legged. Some were constantly digesting the insights they gained from observing the chaos sea, while others were intently watching the other geniuses take the test. Su Fong seemed to be watching the geniuses on the altar like the other geniuses, but in reality, he was activating the divine, sky-projecting wall to record the entire process. Although the laws and abilities created by these geniuses were crude and immature, they were still self-created and could be used as a reference. Even if Su Fong didn't need them for his own cultivation, they would definitely be of great help to his subordinates' cultivation. The test in the chaos sea caused a new ranking change. Every change would cause waves of exclamations from the crowd. On the gold roll, Su Fong's ranking was continuously surpassed, and he quickly fell out of the top 1,000. This scene once again caused the Blue Dome ruler, Xian Lingzi, and the others to worry. In Buji snorted disdainfully. How high can an ant that ascended from a great world have the ability to comprehend? Even if I don't participate in the fifth gate of heaven test, my ranking will still be far above yours. The people who were most worried about Su Fong were the G people. Many experts from the G people had witnessed Su Fong condensing the flower of the heavenly path. Su Fong was able to comprehend the essence of the 6 great Tao laws to the extreme, which showed how shocking his ability to comprehend was. How could his result in the fifth gate of heaven test be low? If Su Fong's ranking continued to rise, once he entered the top 100, even venerable sovereigns wouldn't dare to recklessly deal with such a genius, let alone the G people. In the space deep within the chaos sea, Heavenly Treasure. It was finally Heavenly Treasure's turn. Boom! Heavenly Treasure struck out a seal and merged with the chaos sea through the divine power of the array, causing the laws of the chaos sea to tremble. A wave rose into the sky, and it was actually more than 800 feet tall. Seeing this scene on the screen, the geniuses burst into an uproar. Most of the geniuses were able to create a wave of laws. It was already quite impressive if it could reach 1,000 feet. Only the top geniuses from the ancient god world could reach 1,500 feet. More than 800 feet. How shocking was that? Even only Dao's sovereign's eyes shone with a strange light as he carefully sized up Heavenly Treasure. It was obvious that Heavenly Treasure was very important to him. Where did this monster come from? Those geniuses from the ancient god world looked at Heavenly Treasure with eyes full of shock and jealousy. Comprehending the great Tao laws, evolving the laws, and creating one's own divine ability. This was the ability that only experts who had surpassed the hierarch realm had. Many geniuses could only barely do it with the help of the chaos sea. Heavenly Treasure was able to create a wave of laws that was more than 800 feet tall. What kind of heaven-defying ability was that? It was almost certain that Heavenly Treasure was destined to become a peerless expert as long as nothing unexpected happened. Not only would he be a domain lord, he might even reach the overgod realm, or even higher. How could the geniuses from the ancient god world not be jealous now that Heavenly Treasure had stolen all the limelight? Young Master Wentian's heart was filled with jealousy. Compared to the celestial treasure, his results were insignificant. Su Fong, Heavenly Treasure flew over from the altar and transmitted his voice to Su Fong through his primordial spirit. My future is limitless, and I will definitely become an overlord in the myriad worlds. I will spread the name of Emperor Heavenly Treasure throughout the myriad worlds. What qualifications do you have to be my master? Heavenly Treasure's primordial spirit voice was filled with dominance. Is that so? You do have the qualifications to become an overlord in the future, However, it is uncertain whether I have the qualifications to be your master. Su Fong replied faintly. As time passed, most of the geniuses had completed the test. No one could surpass heavenly treasure anymore. Even the geniuses from the ancient god world could not surpass him. Xuanqing's test result was also shocking. He had reached 500 feet. Although it was not as good as heavenly treasure, it was still considered shocking among the geniuses. Lastly, there were still Di Yuan, Goddess Luo, and Su Fong who had not taken the test. The geniuses could not help but be surprised. Only Tao Emperor's intention was obvious. He wanted to save the one with the highest comprehension ability for last. Di Yuan, who came from a supreme imperial people, and the mysterious Goddess Luo. This time, their results would definitely be shocking. Some even hoped that Di Yuan could break Di Xuan's record. Su Fong was also saved for last. It was clear that only Tao Emperor valued him highly. This made the geniuses puzzled. Di Yuan, among the remaining 3 testers, only Di Yuan was chosen by Di Zun first. Di Yuan raised his eyebrows, and a sliver of displeasure appeared in his eyes under his sharp brows. Soon after, he smiled lightly and flew up to the altar. He stayed on the altar for a month. Boom! Chapter 2151. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A terrifying divine might that could control the heavenly Tao caused the chaos sea to tremble slightly with the help of the array. At this moment, he was not merging with the chaos sea, but controlling the chaos sea gathered by the great Tao laws. Ordained by the heavens, I control the heavens and the heavenly seal. Di Yuan struck out a shocking seal. In an instant, the great Tao laws and the chaos sea roared wildly and set off monstrous waves. 100 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 1,500 feet, 8,000 feet. The waves that were set off finally formed a giant water pillar that was more than 900 feet tall. At the top of the water pillar, the heavenly Tao laws condensed into a huge seal that was 10,000 feet in size. It released a brilliant heavenly Tao divine might that could control heaven and earth, enveloping the surroundings. Di Yuan, as expected of a peerless genius of the imperial people, he comprehended the chaos sea and created his own mystical power. He actually shook the entire chaos sea and caused the laws to resonate, setting off a wave that was more than 900 feet tall. However, the wave was only about 900 feet tall. It was still a little short of Di Xuan's record. All the geniuses were shocked and in awe. Even Emperor Yi Dao looked at Di Yuan with eyes full of undisguised admiration. Fan Shu exclaimed, "Young Master Di Yuan's comprehension ability is far beyond our reach. In time, young Master Di Yuan will definitely become a Di Yuan powerhouse." Only then did the other geniuses exclaim. Praise for Di Yuan flooded out like a tide. Su Fong touched the tip of his nose and smiled faintly. Xuanqing said telepathically, "Su Fong, don't be too pressured. Di Yuan is not an ordinary genius." Xuanqing was afraid that Su Fong would be defeated and traumatized, so he quickly comforted Su Fong in advance. Su Fong nodded and said, "I have never thought of myself as the number 1 genius in the universe, and I have never thought of surpassing Di Yuan. I just need to keep surpassing myself." Xuanqing was relieved. Di Yuan walked over step by step from the altar. There was not much joy on his face. Clearly, he was somewhat disappointed that he could not break Di Xuan's record. Next, Goddess Luo. Only Di Zun called out Goddess Luo's name. Goddess Luo had a mysterious background. She had entered the palace as a Yuan Tiangong, and her performance was extremely dazzling. Many geniuses were looking forward to her results. "Who knew?" Goddess Luo said. "I give up on this test." Only Tao Emperor was taken aback for a moment before a thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. However, he didn't say anything. If other geniuses chose to give up, they would definitely have their qualifications to enter the palace revoked by Uni Tao Emperor. However, Uni Tao Emperor clearly knew of Goddess Luo's background and did not treat her as an ordinary genius. The other geniuses weren't surprised either, and they started whispering among themselves. Su Fong pondered for a while and thought to himself, Goddess Luo either doesn't want to show it in front of everyone, or because she came from the outer world and used the Chaos Sea to create her own nomological mystical abilities, she is restricted. Last one, Su Fong. It was finally Su Fong's turn. The heavenly treasure's essence soul was filled with arrogance. Su Fong, I want to see what kind of Tao nomological mystical ability you can create. How dare you dream of becoming my master? Fan Shu snorted. You almost failed the talent test. What kind of mystical ability can you create? I advise you to give up like that, girl. You don't want to embarrass yourself in front of everyone, and you might even lose your qualifications to take the test. The other geniuses didn't say anything, but they looked at Su Fong with suspicion and even mockery. Di Yuan said in a low voice, Su Fong, you better not disappoint me. Under everyone's gaze, Su Fong flew toward the spell altar and sat down cross-legged in the array formation. Su Fong closed his eyes and gradually settled into an ethereal state. Everyone was looking forward to Su Fong's return. Who knew that he would sit there for as long as 3 months? What is he doing? What else can he do? Obviously, he can't create his own mystical ability, so he's completely at a loss. He didn't use his dermic powers, nor did he use the array formation to merge with the Chaos Sea. He definitely doesn't have the strength to create his own mystical ability, so he's deliberately wasting time. What kind of shocking performance can a cultivator who ascended from a great world have? Since he can't create his own mystical ability, why is he still hanging around? Just kick him out and disqualify him. The geniuses finally couldn't take it anymore and started mocking him. If it weren't for the fact that only Tao Emperor was present, there would have been a lot of abuse. Di Yuan stared at Su Fong without blinking. His eyes were filled with confusion. Goddess Luo's face was covered by a cloak, so her expression couldn't be seen. If one could see her eyes, they would see that her eyes were filled with shock and surprise. Only Tao Emperor was expressionless. There was a hint of seriousness and anticipation in his deep eyes. Another dozen days passed. Su Fong suddenly opened his eyes, and then he stood up from the altar. His hands formed a seal, as if he was holding a chaotic Tai Chi symbol. The seal gave off an ancient and vicissitude aura. Traces of mysterious chaos chi flowed between his hands in a strange pattern. This was a seal that couldn't be more ordinary in the eyes of the geniuses. Then, in the eyes of the Uni-Dao Emperor, he saw a shocking scene. It was as if all the mysteries of the world were being dissected one by this seal. Sky-opening seal. Su Fong suddenly formed a seal. In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth sank. Heaven and earth rose and fell. The stars changed, and the wind and clouds surged. There was also the alternation of winter and summer. Scenes of illusions appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This seal contained the endless mysteries of the great Tao of the universe. It was vast and profound. Only Tao Emperor could see it clearly. Even Di Yuan and Goddess Luo could see a hint of it. Only Tao Emperor was shocked to find that the divine power contained in this seal made him feel that even his supreme divine powers were full of flaws under this seal. If Su Fong had a sufficient cultivation level, this seal could break through all things in the world and all spells. What shocked only Tao Emperor was that Su Fong didn't fuse this seal with the Chaos Sea. Instead, he used the energy in his body to form it. Inner small world. Only Tao Emperor was enlightened. Then, waves of shock surged in his heart again. Using one's inner world to form a divine power is so terrifying. This child's comprehension ability is simply heaven-defying. Boom, boom, boom. As Su Fong formed this seal, the entire Chaos Sea shook as if it was responding to Su Fong. The sea of laws began to boil and rise. It didn't form a water column or a wave, but the entire Chaos Sea was rising because of the resonance. 100 feet, 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet, 5,000 feet. It rose to a height of more than 5,000 feet before the sea stopped rising. However, it was still rippling and roaring. Inside the array space, there was a moment of silence. An ordinary genius would set off a wave, but Su Fong shook the entire sea of laws. Although Di Yuan's results were astonishing compared to Su Fong, he still lost in terms of momentum. It's only 5,000 feet, Fan Shu said sourly. Some of the ancient god world's geniuses also echoed. Who knew? Su Fong formed another seal. Great Yin Seal, a kind of heavenly Tao, divine power that derived all things in the world and evolved all things in the world suddenly burst out. Su Fong observed the chaos sea and verified the yin-yang transformation. From it, he comprehended two divine powers that belonged to his own creation. The first seal was called the Kai Tian seal. As the name implied, the Kai Tian seal was comprehended by Su Fong from the changes of the opening of the world in his body. The second seal was called the Great Yin seal. All things were derived, and all things in the world were evolved. It was the Great Yin seal. In an instant, the chaos sea roared crazily again and continued to rise while boiling. Many of the geniuses completely turned into ice sculptures. Even Uni Dao Di Yuan opened his mouth wide, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Not only did Su Fong create his own great Dao law divine powers, but he also created two. What was especially shocking was that these two exceptional divine powers were not cast with the help of the world and nature, but with the world in his body. Such comprehension ability was more than just heaven-defying. The entire chaos sea finally rose to more than 930 feet before it stopped. Su Fong did not create a miracle and break the record set by Di Xuan. He did not even surpass Di Yuan. It was not that the two divine powers that Su Fong created were not good enough, but his divine powers required the yin and yang energy and magic power of the world to be cast. With his current cultivation base of a medium ultimate god, it was not enough to display the full power of the divine powers. At this moment, the figure on the altar that was not very tall became incomparably tall and majestic, making people look up to him. Di Yuan could not help but think in shock. I'm not as good as him. I'm actually not as good as him. Uni Dao Di Yuan's eyes flashed with a strange light. No one knew what he was thinking. Fan Shu felt a burning sensation on her face, as if she had been slapped a dozen times. I didn't surpass Di Yuan after all. This thought became the only reason for many geniuses, especially those from the ancient god world like Fan Shu, to find peace in their hearts. The test of the fifth gate of heaven is over. Next is the test of the sixth gate of heaven. Uni Dao Di Yuan's majestic voice pulled the geniuses back to reality from their shock. The test of the sixth gate of heaven is already over. The geniuses were stunned. They did not expect the next test to begin right after the test of the fifth gate of heaven ended. The test of the sixth gate of heaven is completely different from the previous 5 tests. It does not test talent or qualifications, but strength. However, the test is not about the competition between geniuses, but survival. Uni Dao Di Yuan's words made the geniuses puzzled. They were all waiting for Uni Dao Di Yuan to explain. However, Uni Dao Di Yuan continued, "You will naturally understand how the test is conducted when you reach the divine world where the test is conducted. Let's go." Before the geniuses could react, Uni Dao Di Yuan used his divine power to envelop all the geniuses and disappeared without a trace from the Chaos Sea space. Hosting the test of entering the palace this time was not in vain. I found such a good seedling like Su Fong. However, Sangxiu will definitely not give up so easily. I have to discuss it with him. Chapter 2152. Su Fong felt the world around him spinning, and in an instant, everything became still. The sudden change made Su Fong feel as if his divine body was about to shatter. It's the same as the test of the fifth gate of heaven. They're trying to show off their power right from the start. This isn't a test to enter the palace. It's clearly a test to train the geniuses. Su Fong smiled bitterly. He looked over. Su Fong was shocked. The world he was in was filled with endless mountains, forests, rivers, and all kinds of birds and beasts. However, what shocked Su Fong was that everything he saw was still. It wasn't just the mountains, the rivers were still flowing, and the birds in the sky were still flying. Everything on the ground, including the air and the natural spirit chi of heaven and earth, was in a strange state of stillness. Even Su Fong and the other geniuses who were sent to this world couldn't move their bodies, as if time and space had been frozen. While the geniuses were still in shock, only Tao Emperor's primordial spirit appeared and quickly turned into a sun spirit, transmitting his thoughts to the minds of the geniuses. This place is called the Pan Hung Divine Realm, and it's actually a corner of the ancient land formed when the world was first formed. The test of the sixth gate of heaven is held here. The test of the sixth gate of heaven is survival, which means that you will face extreme danger. There are many ancient human races living in the Pan Hung Divine Realm, as well as powerful big goblin and demon race. Due to the changes in the world, the Pan Hung Divine Realm was also affected, and many powerful big goblin and demon race who had fallen long ago were resurrected. They had no choice but to seal the entire Pan Hung Divine Realm with the supreme power of the Great Path of Time, which is why it's what you see now. Speaking of this, only Tao Emperor reached out and grabbed a piece of Xianguang, which split into several parts and swept toward the geniuses. Each part of the Xianguang wrapped around a storage ring, but no one knew what it was for. The natural energy and laws of heaven and earth in the Pan Hung Divine Realm are different from the outside world. You can't absorb the natural spirit chi of heaven and earth and cultivate here, so you can only rely on pills to recover. Furthermore, your divine artifacts, as well as the experts within them, will all be sealed. According to the rankings of the first 5 gates of heaven, the number of pills is also different. The top 10 will get 100,000 supreme grade pills, and the top 100 will get 10,000 pills. After 10,000, there will only be 100 pills. Remember, the Pan Hung Divine World is extremely dangerous. Even domain lords can die here. Your mission is to survive in the Pan Yu Divine World. At this point, the divine light of Unidao Emperor's Yang spirit changed. The still space-time suddenly shattered like a mirror. Not good. The seal of time has been broken by a powerful resurrection expert. Only Tao Emperor's Yang spirit also began to shatter layer by layer. Before he could finish speaking, his Yang spirit collapsed and turned into nothingness, disappearing without a trace from the world. Su Fong first felt that his body could move. Then, with his great perfection ability, he sensed that the air and natural spiritual energy began to flow. Then, the river began to surge, and the birds and beasts began to move. Everything that had been still turned into a scene of activity. Roar! Roar! Horrifying roars and roars rose from the Pangu world. Some of the roars came from the Pangu world, while others came from the Pangu world, filled with evil and murderous aura. Then, waves of demonic aura rose into the sky, and evil laughter swept from all directions. Judging from their aura, many of these big goblin, demon clan, and resurrected experts were at the hierarch realm, and there were even terrifying existences that surpassed the hierarch realm. Then, the geniuses realized in despair that Unidao Emperor was not lying. In the Pan Hung world, the natural aura and world energy, and even the heavenly law were different from the outside world. It was impossible to cultivate here. The most despairing thing was that with such a change, they did not know when help would come. They might be trapped here forever. The only fortunate thing was that all these geniuses from all over the universe possessed extraordinary natural talent. Coupled with the fact that they just comprehended the laws of the Heaven Tao in the Chaos Ocean, their comprehension of the laws of the Heaven Tao wasn't low. So, they were able to execute spells and divine abilities here. However, once their divine origin was depleted, the only thing that could be replenished was the pills in the storage ring. At this moment, the geniuses realized the importance of the storage ring and quickly grabbed the storage ring in front of them. Only 100 supreme-grade pills. How long can this last? One of the geniuses looked into the storage ring with his consciousness and saw that there were only 100 pills. He immediately cried out in despair. Puff! The genius felt a sharp pain coming from his back. Then he saw a hand reaching out from his chest with a beating heart in the palm. Since you don't like these 100 pills, then give them to me. A gloomy voice came from behind. It was a sneak attack from behind. This genius was tall and sturdy, but his face was covered in powder. His lips were red, and his eyebrows were arched. Who else could it be but Een Buji? He was kicked out of the Chaos Sea by Unidao Emperor, and now he was back to the sixth gate of heaven. This surprised all the geniuses. Imbuji's ruthless methods made the geniuses tremble with fear. At the same time, it also reminded them of something. Since they did not have enough resources, why not plunder? The sixth gate of heaven did not forbid them from attacking other geniuses. No matter where these geniuses came from, how many of them were not vicious and merciless to be able to reach their current heights? Moreover, if they did not plunder others, they might be plundered by others. Without the pills, they might die in the pan-hung divine world. With Imbuji as an example, the other geniuses did not want to fall behind. They all attacked the geniuses around them. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the pan-hung divine world was filled with earth-shattering battles. In order to survive, these geniuses threw everything to the back of their minds. Su Fong kept the storage ring and saw that there were 10,000 supreme-grade pills in it. This meant that he had entered the top 100 after the fifth gate of heaven test. 10,000 pills should be enough. Just as Su Fong was thinking about this, the divine light around him changed slightly. His body swayed and disappeared from the spot. Puff! A swift and fierce sword chi crushed the afterimage left behind by Su Fong into pieces. It turned out that a genius had launched a sneak attack on Su Fong from behind. This genius had red hair. He was the one who had tried to plunder Sun Chi in the fifth gate of heaven. You're courting death. Su Fong revealed a cold, murderous aura. He did not want to plunder others, but now that he was ambushed, there was no need for him to be polite. Just as he was about to attack the red-haired youth, Imbuji's cold voice sounded. Su Fong is mine. Who dares to fight with me? Whoosh, whoosh. Imbuji, young master Wentian, and more than 10 other geniuses charged toward Su Fong. The surrounding geniuses all dodged to the side. Su Fong, you used despicable means to set me up in the fifth gate of heaven. Did you think that this day would come? Imbuji gritted his teeth. His rugged face that was covered in foundation was twisted, making him look extremely ferocious. Su Fong saw that Xuanqin was surrounded by more than 30 geniuses. His murderous aura intensified. It was chaos. The geniuses no longer cared about men and women. They only cared about the elixirs. Furthermore, Xuanqin's results in the fifth gate of heaven were outstanding. He had 100,000 elixirs in his storage ring. Naturally, he had become the target of many geniuses. Natal form. Su Fong activated his natal magic treasure without hesitation. Q8 ZBSB. He had already tested it. Although he could not activate a divine artifact in the pan-hung divine world, the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda was his natal magic treasure. It was not affected when it merged with Su Fong's perfect realm body. The 100,000 experts and Big Goblin in his inner world all entered the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda space. They used the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda's divine aura to merge with Su Fong's divine body. At this moment, his strength had surpassed the ultimate god realm. Buzz, buzz, buzz. He activated the illusory fire cloud in his natal form. In an instant, a large amount of fire from the illusory fire cloud formed a large cloud of fire. The cloud of fire fell toward Imbuji and the others. Imbuji's divine aura changed as he used his movement technique and moved hundreds of miles away at an unbelievable speed. Young Master Wentian and the other geniuses were enveloped by the cloud of fire. They screamed in pain. Su Fong did not care about killing them. He activated his flaming cloud wings and turned into a cloud of fire. He arrived in front of Xuanqin in an instant. How dare you touch my partner? All of you die. Another cloud of fire exploded and engulfed the 10 geniuses in front of him. They exploded and burned. 5 of them died on the spot, while the others ran away. Xuanqin, are you okay? Su Fong saw that Xuanqin's right shoulder was torn apart by a lightning bolt. He could not help but feel heartache as coldness appeared in his eyes. It's just a small injury. It's nothing. Xuanqin smiled. His eyes were no longer cold. They were filled with warmth. Rumble. Not far away, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The energy of heaven and earth surged in all directions. The geniuses were shaken and the weaker ones fell to the ground. Goddess Luo. Su Fong sensed Goddess Luo's aura in the explosion and was shocked. He looked over. Goddess Luo was surrounded by more than 100 geniuses. They were mainly the top geniuses from the ancient god world. Fan Shu was the leader. These geniuses from the ancient god world were more powerful than the geniuses from the ancient god world. They all had supreme skills. Although Goddess Luo's strength was unfathomable, she was still in a life-or-death situation when surrounded by more than 100 geniuses. Should I save her or not? Su Fong's eyes showed a hint of hesitation. Scenes of him and Goddess Luo in the illusory world flashed past his mind. Xuanxin, take care of yourself. Su Fong did not hesitate anymore. He reminded Xuanxin and went straight for Goddess Luo. Su Fong and this mysterious girl indeed have an unusual relationship. Chapter 2153. I should have known. With Su Fong's talent, how could he not have any suitors? Xuanxin sighed in his heart. With Xuanxin's intelligence and a woman's innate sensitivity, how could he not have sensed the abnormality between Su Fong and Goddess Luo? Although Xuanxin had already seen through it, he had suppressed it in his heart. Now that he saw Su Fong risking his life to save another woman, how could Xuanxin not feel pain in his heart? Xuanxin then looked at Goddess Luo. Goddess Luo's cloak had already been shattered, revealing her peerless beauty. Even Xian Xin felt ashamed of her inferiority. Her heart was filled with bitterness as she thought, she is indeed prettier than me. Her talents and abilities are also far above mine. I have worked hard for 100,000 years, but I still can't catch up to Su Fong. Thinking of the 100,000 years of hard work and hardship, Xuanxin smiled bitterly. Actually, Su Fong had already predicted how Xuanxin would react. However, he had no choice but to act now. Although the life he experienced in the disillusionment heart-killing mirror was not real, it was more unforgettable than reality. He and Goddess Luo were not in the same world, and they would not have any future together. Now that Goddess Luo was in a desperate situation, Su Fong had no choice but to save her. As for Xuanxin, he could only explain it to him later. Damn Jin Hong King, it's all because of you. Q8 ZBSB. Su Fong cursed the Gold Rainbow King in his heart. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He wanted to vent all his anger on Fan Shu and the others. In his inner world, the Gold Rainbow King felt Su Fong's anger. He was so scared that he trembled. How could he dare to make a sound? This notorious bandit was still very afraid of Su Fong. Pa pa pa. Su Fong took a step forward. His body grew crazily. Golden lightning flashed on his body. He quickly turned into a golden giant, more than 30 meters tall. Giant diamond body. Although Su Fong did not activate the giant diamond body to the extreme, it still displayed shocking power. What kind of evil cultivation method is this? When Fan Shu and the other geniuses saw Su Fong charging in their direction, they were all overjoyed and filled with killing intent. However, when they saw Su Fong behind the gigantified Vajra, he looked as majestic as the god of war. Every one of them instantly transformed. He walked right into the trap. Kill him, Fan Shu shouted coldly. Immediately, more than 20 geniuses pounced on Su Fong. Boom! Boom! As Su Fong's arms shook, huge golden palm prints shot out like bolts of golden lightning. Those ultimate gods and a few mid-level ultimate gods from the ancient god world were sent flying. 3 of them had their divine bodies shattered and lost their lives. Su Fong stepped forward step by step. Wherever he went, he was unstoppable. He killed his way to Goddess Luo's side. You've come, Goddess Luo said with a trembling voice. The way she looked at Su Fong became gentle. She was touched, but there was also a strange and complicated look in her eyes. At this moment, Su Fong felt as if he had returned to the fantasy world. I've come. Su Fong returned to his normal state and used his divine power to support Goddess Luo, who was on the verge of collapsing. Fan Shu, you deserve to die. Seeing the injuries on Goddess Luo's body, Su Fong's eyes burned with anger. Goddess Luo was covered in injuries. Her body was enveloped by a terrifying and strange nirvana energy. The nirvana energy was similar to the heavenly tribulation energy. It was a majestic energy that came from the heavenly way. Ordinary gods could not control this kind of heavenly way energy. However, Sanskrit had the supreme superpower to control the heavenly way energy. Although it could not be compared to the imperial people, its superpower was still extremely shocking. Even goddess Luo could not get rid of the energy in her body. She was enveloped by the nirvana energy and repeatedly destroyed her divine body. Su Fong separated his palms. A surge of yin and yang energy from the world enveloped goddess Luo and seeped into her divine body. Su Fong's yin and yang energy was also a kind of heavenly way energy. All the powers in the world, including the heavenly tribulation energy and the nirvana energy, were derived from yin and yang energy. Under Su Fong's power, Fan Shu's yin and yang energy was quickly dissolved. Then Su Fong released the 9 yang energy and healed Goddess Luo's injuries. Su Fong, you really are in cahoots with Goddess Luo. Fan Shu's dark voice came. You killed hundreds of my race's geniuses at the Brahma Saint Pond in the Brahma Heaven God realm. You even killed our progenitor and ruined our grand plan. Let's see where you can run to this time. Goddess Luo shouted coldly. The Brahmin race tried to revive the primogenitor and almost caused a great disaster. If you don't kill the Brahmin race's primogenitor as soon as possible, who knows what kind of disaster it will bring to the universe? You still want to avenge the Brahma clan in the Brahma Heaven God realm? No matter what, the two of you will not escape death today. Fan Shu shouted angrily. A tsunami-like aura burst out of Fan Shu's body and rolled towards Su Fong. It looked like it could shatter the world. There were more than 100 geniuses from the ancient god realm in total. They channeled their auras together and formed a suppressive force to kill Su Fong and Goddess Luo. Even a region master would have to avoid such a terrifying attack. Not to mention that Su Fong and Goddess Luo weren't region masters. Goddess Luo had lost her ability to fight, but she didn't show any fear or despair. She looked at Su Fong with eyes full of tenderness. It was like she was facing a tide of soldiers in a fantasy world. Xuanqin was rushing toward them and planning to help Su Fong. But when he saw Goddess Luo's expression, Xuanqin felt a sharp pain in his heart. It's not the end yet. Su Fong looked at Goddess Luo and smiled. It's a good opportunity to test the power of my self-created divine ability. Since you come knocking on my door, I won't hold back. Heaven opening seal. Su Fong's eyes flashed with the terrifying illusion of heaven and earth. His hands seemed to be hugging a chaotic taiji. Mysterious, chaotic energy flowed between his fingers as he performed a shocking seal. Heaven and earth collapsed. Heaven and earth rose and fell. Stars moved. Wind rose and clouds surged. Cold and summer alternated. Life and death appeared in the eyes of the geniuses. Boom! The auras of Fan Shu and the other geniuses shattered layer by layer. A dozen or so geniuses were turned to dust while the rest were sent flying. After performing this shocking attack, Su Fong's aura withered, but it was still within his tolerance range. Heaven opening seal. This was the supreme divine ability that Su Fong had comprehended from the sea of chaos and verified the yin-yang change. It not only contained the magnificent power to destroy chaos and split heaven and earth, but also had the shocking power to break all laws and all living things. In addition, Su Fong's divine ability was performed with the power of the world in his body. Fan Su and the other geniuses couldn't use the heavenly way to perform divine abilities in the Pan-Hung divine world. Their power came from their spiritual dwellings. How could they fight against Su Fong? Therefore, Su Fong's attack was even more terrifying. This shocking attack shook heaven and earth. All of the fighting in the area over the medicinal pills stopped, and everyone looked at Su Fong in astonishment. He's at the end of his rope. Gather all your strength and kill him. Fan Shu let out a ferocious roar. Ignoring her injuries, she once again charged at Su Fong like a tidal wave. At the end of his rope, Su Fong sneered disdainfully. After forming a seal, his divine body suddenly collapsed and turned into a terrifying pool of blood that surged out. At the same time, the sky above was covered with a layer of blood and turned into a blood dome. The reincarnation power of the Heavenfall underworld enveloped Fan Shu and the other geniuses of the ancient god world. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the pool of blood surged and roared, blood-red figures emerged from the pool of blood. Suddenly, a blood-red hand reached out from the blood dome and grabbed at Fan Su. Fan Su and the other geniuses of the ancient god world were indeed peerless geniuses. Even in the midst of Su Fang's Heavenfall underworld, they were still extremely powerful. Their explosive power shook the pool of blood violently, and the blood dome almost shattered. However, Su Fang's Heavenfall underworld was a divine power that was based on the physical body. It didn't need the help of the natural forces of heaven and earth. But these geniuses of the ancient god world were limited. Moreover, the blood shadow doppelganger was wantonly devouring their vitality and blood chi, and the blood claw was madly absorbing their blood and even souls. Screams echoed in the Heavenfall underworld. In less than half an hour, more than a dozen geniuses of the ancient god world had died. The others had lost their will to fight. Fan Shu saw that the situation was not good. When she was about to escape, the pool of blood around her swept over and circled her. Whoosh! A physical body condensed from the pool of blood. Su Fang took a step forward and punched Fan Shu's back with the power of the divine body and the power of yin and yang in the world. Fan Shu's defense was shattered, and he was immediately severely injured. Su Fang grabbed Fan Shu by the back of the neck, as if he was catching a chicken. "If you dare to kill me, you will be an enemy of the supreme Sanskrit. Even if you become a genius of the heavenly realm in Yuan Tiangong, you will not be able to escape from my clan's oppression." Fan Shu threatened viciously. Crack! Fan Shu heard the sound of his neck being crushed. Then, a terrifying force rushed into his head and shattered it. Then, Su Fang opened his mouth and sucked in all the blood around him. The Heavenfall underworld's reincarnation power also disappeared. There were more than 50 geniuses of the ancient god world who were lucky enough to survive. They were scared out of their wits and hurriedly fled into the distance. Su Fang was about to chase after them when a strong sense of danger rose in his heart. He quickly formed the yin-yang transformation in his hands, only to see Di Yuan arrive from the air, bringing with him a supreme aura. Just as he was about to attack Su Fang, he sensed the terrifying aura of the yin-yang transformation. Di Yuan raised his eyebrows and stopped. "Su Fang, your strength is indeed extraordinary. Even I have to admit that I underestimated you." Di Yuan looked at Su Fang with a hint of fear in his eyes. Then, Di Yuan said domineeringly, "However, there are only a little more than 1,000 geniuses from the ancient god world. More than 100 of them were killed or seriously injured by you. If you don't give me a reason, don't blame me for bullying the weak." Su Fang was about to speak. Goddess Luo suddenly said sharply, "I am his cultivation partner. We were once in a desperate situation. He gave me half of the chance to survive. Now that I was seriously injured by the geniuses of the ancient god world, he helped me vent my anger. Is this reason enough?" Chapter 2154. Goddess Luo's words stunned Su Fang. Immediately, his scalp went numb. Seeing Xuanqing's appearance again, Su Fang cursed in his heart. The golden rainbow monarch said from the depths of his body, "Kid, you still can't tell, right? You risked your life for this little girl just now, causing her to have feelings for you. She purposely said these words to test you and see what choice you will make." Su Fang glanced at Goddess Luo. Indeed, he saw a trace of craftiness in Goddess Luo's eyes. It seemed that the golden rainbow monarch's guess was most likely true. Goddess Luo really had feelings for Su Fang. After experiencing a lifetime of life and death love, how could Su Fang be heartless? Su Fang had seen all kinds of storms, but he had never had the experience of dealing with two women at the same time. What should he do now? One was Su Fang's Tao companion who had gone through life and death with him in the outside world. She was pure, holy, and noble. Moreover, she was the pride of the ancient divine Phoenix clan. The other was a mysterious, ethereal woman from beyond the heavens who had a lifetime of life and death love with Su Fang in the illusory world. How should he choose? It really made it difficult for Su Fong to choose. The more Su Fong thought about it, the more confused he became. He shouted at the golden rainbow monarch, "It's all because of you, old bastard. You actually want to take me as your disciple. I must destroy your golden rainbow monarch world and turn you into ashes." The golden rainbow monarch was trembling with fear. He hid in the golden rainbow monarch world and did not dare to make sound. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on Su Fong. Xuanqin and Goddess Luo were the two most outstanding women in the Yuan Tiangong Palace entrance examination this time. They could even be said to be the two most outstanding prodigies in the universe. These two peerless beauties were actually both Su Fong's Tao companions. This made everyone jealous and hateful. Why were all the good cabbages eaten by pigs? Almost everyone thought so in their hearts. At this time, Di Yuan spoke up majestically, "Su Fong, to be able to make two peerless women fall in love with you. This young master is also filled with admiration. Fine, I won't pursue the matter of you killing Fan Shu anymore. When we get out of the Pan Hong divine world, the Sanskrit will come looking for you." Su Fong smiled embarrassedly. If it was before, he would still be afraid of the Sanskrit. Now that he had entered the Yuan Tiangong, no matter how powerful the Sanskrit was, would they dare to kill people in the Yuan Tiangong? Di Yuan continued. During the test of the sixth celestial gate, there was a sudden change. Even the masters of Yuan Tiangong couldn't save us in a short time. The Pan-Hung divine world is fraught with danger, and death is a possibility. Thus, I have decided to unite all the geniuses and fight against the dangers together. Su Fong, are you willing to join me? Thank you for your kindness, young master, but I still have some personal matters to attend to. Su Fong rejected Di Yuan immediately. Di Yuan's so-called alliance was merely wanting to take all of the geniuses under his command to serve him at his disposal. How could Su Fong not perceive his intentions? Q8 ZBSB. Cultivators should focus on their cultivation. How can their Tao heart be disturbed by women? Su Fong, you're on your own now, Di Yuan said majestically. Then he turned around and left. Many geniuses followed behind him. There were also many geniuses. Some formed groups of 3 to 5, while others traveled alone. They quickly disappeared from the Pan-Hung divine world. Su Fong was about to fly toward Xuanqin when Goddess Luo suddenly staggered and cried out in pain. She almost couldn't fly. Su Fong's figure flickered, and he came to Goddess Luo's side to support her. Seeing this, Xuanqin gritted his teeth and flew into the distance. Su Fong hurriedly shouted, "Xuanqin, where are you going?" Xuanqin's cold voice sounded. "Won't I be in your way if I stay here?" Su Fong said anxiously, "Xuanqin, things aren't what you think." Goddess Luo said coldly, "Could it be that what I said just now was wrong?" Su Fong was speechless. "Su Fong, I've ascended to the heavens. For 100,000 years, I've been cultivating in the divine phoenix ancient clan. I didn't dare to stop for even a moment. I did it so that I could follow your footsteps and be with you one day." Xuanqin's body trembled, and he smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect this to be the result I got. What's the difference between you and Yin Sun Shin?" As he spoke, Xuanqin spat out a mouthful of blood. In her opinion, she had ascended to the heavens and joined the divine phoenix ancient clan. But Su Fong had found another Tao partner. This was equivalent to betrayal. Xuanqin looked cold, but he was extremely stubborn. How could he tolerate this? Su Fong was anxious. He flew over with Goddess Luo. "Xuanqin, listen to me." Xuanqin kept retreating to avoid Su Fong. He smiled bitterly and said, "I don't need to explain. I just want you to make a choice. Me or this woman." Goddess Luo smiled and said, "Huang Xuanqin, although you knew Su Fong in the great world, Su Fong might not choose you. He and I have gone through life and death together. How can you compare to him?" Unexpectedly, Goddess Luo was also someone who wanted to stir up trouble. She added fuel to the fire at this time. Xuanqin trembled. He shouted coldly, "Su Fong, tell me your choice." After a moment of silence, Su Fong suddenly revealed a domineering aura. He said, "All right, since I have to make a choice, I will make a decision. The two of you, Xuanxin and Goddess Luo instantly became very nervous. Su Fang will not let either of you go. I will choose both. Su Fang's domineering voice stunned Xuanxin and Goddess Luo. Su Fang and Xian Xin had become Dao companions ever since they were in the outside world. It was impossible for Su Fang to abandon her. He had spent a lifetime with Goddess Luo in the illusory world. Abandoning Goddess Luo now would go against Su Fang's conscience. He would not do such a thing. Cultivators should live happily. They should dare to love and hate. Since it was difficult to choose, he should make a prompt decision. He might as well choose both. Su Fang, you are not greedy. I, Xuanxin, will not share a Dao partner with another woman. Since you can't give up that woman, I choose to withdraw. Xuanxin smiled bitterly. An extremely cold aura was released from his body. It turned into a pair of wings surrounded by cold aura. He flapped his wings and flew hundreds of thousands of miles away, disappearing into the depths of the Pan-Hung divine world. Su Fang was about to put Goddess Luo into his inner world to chase after Xuanxin. Only then did he realize that he was restrained by an invisible force. He could not put people or items into his inner world, nor could he release the divine artifacts in his body. Su Fang had to use his power. He took Goddess Luo with him and chased after Xuanxin. Su Fang, you choose both. How greedy. Women in the mortal world would not tolerate sharing a husband, let alone me and Xuanxin. Goddess Luo transmitted her voice to Su Fang with her nascent soul. Then she said, I have already said that we are not from the same world. Since you can't give up Xuanxin, I will withdraw. Shut up. I, Su Fang, will definitely do what I say. You and Xuanxin will not be able to escape from my hands. Su Fang shouted coldly. If you want to leave my side, it is not impossible. Give me back my half of the cake. That rotten half of the cake. Su Fang's words triggered Goddess Luo's memories. Her eyes shone with a strange light. But the next moment, Goddess Luo relaxed and spat out a mouthful of poisonous blood. Su Fang's body was stained with a few drops of blood. His robe and divine body's defense were quickly corroded. You were poisoned? Su Fang Dao was shocked. He immediately used his power to sense Goddess Luo's aura. Only then did he realize that her injuries were far more serious than what he saw on the surface. There were many wounds on her body. The wounds all had the unique aura of the ancient god world. Below her left chest, there was a flying sword wound with black poisonous blood. Su Fang tore open Goddess Luo's clothes. He saw a wound below her left chest that pierced through her divine body. It almost pierced through her heart. The poison was continuously corroding her life essence. Goddess Luo's sensitive part was exposed in front of Su Fang. She looked shy. However, in the illusion world of the illusion extermination mirror, there were no secrets between the two of them. They were like a real couple. They had experienced all the normal life between husband and wife. Although it was an illusion, it was no different from reality. Now that Su Fang saw her body, it was not a big deal. Goddess Luo quickly returned to normal. Damn you, Fan Shu. Even if you die 100 times, it will not be enough. Su Fang gritted his teeth. He reached out and pressed on Goddess Luo's wound. Ah, Goddess Luo screamed in shock. Her face turned red. Su Fang said, Don't move. I will remove the poison for you. Remove the poison? Goddess Luo did not believe that Su Fang could really remove the poison. She thought that Su Fang wanted to take advantage of the situation. She was very nervous. Su Fang ordered Gui Gui to use the detoxification ability in his body. Using Su Fang's body, the poison in Goddess Luo's wound was sucked out bit by bit. Soon, all the poison was sucked out. Goddess Luo finally understood that she had misunderstood Su Fang. Although the poison in Goddess Luo's body was removed, her injuries were not light. The main reason was that her opponent was too strong. Fan Shu and the others were also very ruthless. Heal your wounds first. Then, we will go and find Xuanxin. Su Fang immediately made a decision. He fed Goddess Luo a large number of elixirs. Then, he brought Goddess Luo and flew across the sky. He planned to find a secluded place to help Goddess Luo recover. The Pan-Hung godly world was now filled with crazy big goblins, devils and resurrected strong cultivators. Su Fong met many along the way. Luckily, they were not very strong. Su Fong killed them easily. It's a godly nation built by a godly person. After flying in the sky for more than 10 days, a godly nation appeared in Su Fong's sight. After flying above the godly nation and sensing it, Su Fong raised his eyebrows. He was surprised. This godly nation was protected by an extremely strong ward. The godly nation was not big. It only had a dozen cities. There were also imperial cities and palaces. The human cultivators in the godly nation were not very strong. Most of them were mortals. The highest cultivation level was only the divine emperor realm. Su Fong and Goddess Luo's appearance immediately attracted the attention of the godly people in the godly nation. They all cheered loudly. Some even knelt on the ground to worship them. Chapter 2155. After entering the kingdom of God's emperor personally welcomed them. He was very respectful to Su Fong and Goddess Luo. It felt like a mortal meeting a god. The kingdom of God's emperor was also a god, and his cultivation level was quite high. He had reached the peak of the 9th heaven of the divine emperor realm. However, this level of cultivation was nothing to Su Fong. Regardless of whether the kingdom of God's emperor was sincere or not, Su Fong brought Goddess Luo to a quiet palace in the depths of the imperial city and created an array to seal the entire palace. They entered a large hall in the palace. Su Fong saw that although the poison in Goddess Luo's body had been cleansed, her injuries were still shocking. She had 100,000 supreme-grade pills on her, but no matter how many pills she had, it was difficult for her to recover in a short period of time. Goddess Luo stared at Su Fong. "Why? Do you feel a little heartache?" "Yes." Su Fong was straightforward, which surprised Goddess Luo. After a moment of silence, Goddess Luo said, "From the day I became a cultivator, I was often injured. This injury is nothing." Su Fong looked at Goddess Luo in surprise. "Why is that?" Goddess Luo's expression dimmed. "This is my fate. There's no need to talk about it." Su Fong knew that Goddess Luo had too many secrets, so he didn't continue asking. After letting Goddess Luo sit down and activate her divine essence, Su Fong activated the power of the 9 yang and injected it into her body. After receiving Su Fong's yang energy, Goddess Luo's vitality and blood were recovering bit by bit. Gradually, she was free from the threat of death. Only then did Su Fong feel relieved. Suddenly, a shocking special power exploded from Goddess Luo's body and entered Su Fong's body. It was somewhat similar to the yin and yang energy in Su Fong's world, but it was different. It felt like a power that didn't belong to this world. This power, just as he was shocked, this power was absorbed by Su Fong and entered the yin-yang Dao wheel formed by the 67 yang meridians. Suddenly, there was an unexpected explosion. The entire yin-yang Dao wheel was shaking crazily. Su Fong was astonished as he peeled off a strand of his consciousness and sent it into the depths of his body. He discovered that the 68th yang meridian that he was trying to break through was actually successfully condensing. I never expected that Goddess Luo's unique power would allow me to successfully produce a yang meridian. Su Fong was pleasantly surprised. He activated the 9 yang 9 transformations with all his might and began to attack the yang vein that was about to be born. Goddess Luo felt the changes in Su Fong's body and looked at Su Fong in surprise. "Are you about to break through? It's about time. Swallow some pills to recover first. I'll leave for a while." Su Fong did not avoid Goddess Luo and went to a corner of the palace. Just as he sat down cross-legged, Qi, a wave of yang qi flames swept through the 67 yang meridians and rushed into the meridian that was being attacked. The 68th meridian suddenly shook violently, as if it wanted to rush out of the body. Then, the entire meridian instantly turned into a jade-like substance, and the yang energy from the other yang meridians madly surged into the meridian. The 68th yang meridian was successfully born. The newly born yang meridian rapidly approached the yin-yang Dao wheel and fused with one end of the 67th yang meridian, becoming a part of the yin-yang Dao wheel's periphery. As such, the yin-yang Dao wheel was formed from 68 yang meridians. Su Fong began to activate the 9 yang, 9 transformations to cultivate the newly born 68th yang meridian, making the yang meridian even more like a jade-like meridian. Only 10 years later did the 68th yang meridian calm down. Su Fong began to attack the 69th yang meridian. What kind of power is in Goddess Luo's body that allowed me to successfully condense a yang meridian? Su Fong guessed that Goddess Luo's power was a special power that came from beyond the heavens. It was very special that allowed Su Fong to produce a yang meridian. He looked at Goddess Luo. He saw that she had already recovered by half. The wounds on her body had already healed, as if she had never been injured. She was still far from recovering to her peak state. Goddess Luo was seriously injured this time. It was already shocking that she could recover to such an extent in just 10 years. This was naturally thanks to Su Fong's yang qi. Su Fong walked over and was about to use his yang qi to continue helping Goddess Luo recover. Goddess Luo suddenly said, "My yang spirit is also seriously injured. Help me." Su Fong did not hesitate to release his yang spirit and enter Goddess Luo's divine aperture. Goddess Luo's divine aperture's defense did not block Su Fong's yang spirit. He came to the divine aperture. Goddess Luo's yang spirit was a little dispirited, but it did not look like she was seriously injured. Su Fong could not help but be stunned. However, when he saw Goddess Luo's naked and beautiful yang spirit, the yang qi in Su Fong's body surged, and he almost had a nosebleed. Goddess Luo's yang spirit moved closer to Su Fong and said faintly, "Do you still remember what happened after my face was destroyed in the fire?" Scenes from the fantasy world appeared in Su Fong's mind. A fire destroyed Goddess Luo's peerless face and made her heart turn to ashes. Su Fong had risked his life to exchange for a mirror that could change one's appearance for Goddess Luo. He wanted to win her heart and resolve the knot in her heart. Su Fong sighed and said, "You said that it was just an illusion. You and I are not from the same world. Although it was an illusion, it came from the heart, just like how you risked your life to save me this time." Goddess Luo stared into Su Fong's eyes and then hugged Su Fong tightly. In an instant, Su Fong felt as if he was floating in the clouds. Even his soul was floating. "I still want to be husband and wife with you. Even if the world is destroyed, you don't have to care about him." Goddess Luo bit Su Fong's ear and whispered. At this moment, their yang spirits were entwined and merged together, comforting each other. Their bodies also merged together, entangling with each other. All of this seemed very unfamiliar, but it was so familiar, as if they had experienced it thousands of times before. After an unknown period of time, everything was calm. "Su Fong, the fantasy world has become reality. I'm satisfied with this. Once? How can once be enough? No. Ah, Su Fong, how can you be so barbaric? You weren't like this in the fantasy world. It's too late for you to know my true colors now." Ah. The palace returned to its calm state. After a long time, Goddess Luo said, "Go and find her. I know you still miss her." There was a moment of silence. Su Fong said domineeringly, "You stay here and recover. I'll come back when I find Xuanxin. Neither of you will be able to escape from my grasp." Goddess Luo snorted. "You greedy man. Why don't you get all the peerless women by your side? That won't be necessary. With you and Xuanxin, I'm satisfied." Su Fong laughed domineeringly. Su Fong left the palace, and the theocracy emperor brought many cultivators to visit him. Su Fong asked about the Pan-Hung divine realm in detail, asked for a map, and then left the theocracy with confusion. What surprised Su Fong was that the gods of the Pan-Hung divine realm didn't know the origin or history of the Pan-Hung divine realm. It seemed to have appeared out of thin air. What shocked Su Fong the most was that when he used the Tianji life shrinking art to sense the fates of these gods, the Dao runes of fate had no reaction. Everyone's fates were blank. In fact, Su Fong had already noticed the strangeness of the Pan-Hung divine realm when he suppressed Fan Shu and the other ancient god realm geniuses. He used the heaven underworld to devour Fan Shu and a dozen ancient God Realm geniuses. But after that, he realized that the blood chi of these geniuses didn't bring any changes to his life force. Interesting. The test of the sixth gate of heaven isn't that simple. Su Fong vaguely guessed something. From a map given by the Theocracy Emperor, Su Fong knew that the Pan-Hung Divine Realm was very vast. Even divine emperors couldn't find the end of the Pan-Hung Divine Realm. In the Pan-Hung Divine Realm, there were many powerful big goblin, demon race, and also powerful hidden cultivators. It was said that the strongest hidden cultivator was called Honorable Qianghua. Her cultivation had reached the peak of the ninth heaven of Ultimate God. After the upheaval, many ancient demon gods and big goblin were resurrected in the Pan-Hung Divine Realm. Some of them were even at the peak of the Ultimate God Realm. Su Fong wasn't afraid of the top experts in the Pan-Hung Divine Realm. However, there were countless big goblin, demon race, and resurrected experts in the Pan-Hung Divine Realm. It was a dangerous place. According to the Theocracy Emperor, there were many extremely powerful resurrected experts who were still in hibernation. Once they woke up, there wouldn't be any life left in the Pan-Hung Divine Realm. Let's find Xuanxin first. Su Fong began to worry about Xuanxin's safety. He used the fire cloud wings and flew in the direction where Xuanxin left. Su Fong's unbridled flight attracted the attention of many greater demons and devils. There were also resurrected experts who attacked him fiercely. Even with Su Fong's strength, he didn't dare to fight too long. Once he was entangled, he might not even be able to survive. Fortunately, Su Fong had many pills with him, and they were all supreme-grade pills. He wouldn't be unable to replenish his divine yuan just because he didn't have enough pills. In addition, Su Fong had the yin-yang transformation. Even the Pan-Hung Divine Realm, where cultivation was impossible, he could devour everything in the world and turn it into chaos chi for cultivation and recovery. However, using the yin-yang transformation would cause too much of a commotion. It might alert the powerful existences in the Pan-Hung Divine Realm, so Su Fong wouldn't use it easily. As he flew, Su Fong used his great perfection stage ability and the life shrinking technique to project his senses to search for Xuanxin's aura. During this time, Su Fong saw many geniuses who had entered the Pan-Hung Divine Realm. He also saw some of them being attacked by the big goblin, demon race, and resurrected experts. Among these geniuses, only Sun Chi had a good relationship with Su Fong. Su Fong didn't care about the lives of the others, so he naturally wouldn't save them. About 20 years later, Wang, the life-shrinking techniques Tao of destiny suddenly flashed in the depths of his mind. Xuanxin, I've finally found you. It was Xuanxin's Tao of destiny that caused the Tao of destiny to stir. Su Fong flew forward. 3 days later, a towering mountain appeared in his sight.